And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, April 4th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Bet365. And buckle up, folks. 13 NBA games tonight. Lots of dudes that I've never heard of. Guys with very clearly made up names that we will talk about throughout this show. Definitely did that on the process this morning. That was kind of fun. A couple more days of that bad boy before I get to sleep in again. Can't wait. Before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow Adam and I on Twitter. Our names are underneath our names, I guess. Adam, what's up?
How's it going, man? Nice to be back to basketball, kind of, I guess.
I would rather talk about baseball today. I wish this was an MLB deeper dive.
Right there with you.
As long as baseball, like, it's so weird because for a baseball slate, I want 15 games or 14 games or whatever. A 3-game baseball slate is a death sentence. Whereas in the NBA, I'm like, okay, cool. We could really dig into these teams. It's the exact opposite for baseball. This 13-gamer would be a great slate to talk about. It is less so for basketball.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt.
Oh, it's going to be... Mike Parrish said it. Some of these names are going to be like Key and Peele. It really is. There's a particular gentleman on the Blazers, I believe, who I don't think is a real person.
Yeah, I mean, it took me like 5 minutes this morning to realize there were two Champagne brothers. However you pronounce his name, Champagne brothers today.
Oh, it took me adding the wrong guy to the team a couple weeks ago when he first started popping up, where I was just like, I just typed it in for what I thought was the guy that used to be on the Raptors, or maybe still is on the Raptors. I don't know.
Nope, it's on the Celtics now.
And then I found out that was not the case, that there was a second one. So that was a thing.
Yeah, I'm looking at like our Spurs projections this morning. Like, man, there's gonna be a bunch of minutes available because this guy's on the Celtics as of yesterday. And it's like, nope, wrong one.
No, the Jonathan Williams, that's a new one for me. That's a made up name that I don't believe in. That's like somebody said it, but like they had it. This is my hypothesis. Someone said the name with an accent that is incredibly thick, and whoever was at the hospital that day wrote that shit down the way that they heard it.
Phonetically.
Yeah. That's the only way that makes any sense. I couldn't wrap my head around it. We got a couple more of those bad boys. I mean, the Blazers today, they should just be relegated. They shouldn't even be allowed to field it. They should just be allowed to forfeit.
Yeah, maybe they will. That'll be cool.
Like, let's say you lived in Memphis. Apartment is across the street from the arena. What is the most amount of money you'd be willing to pay, if at all, to go to that game today? Like, if you just had a ticket to wherever you want to sit, would you go?
Yeah, I mean, you're still watching John Morant, and
I guess. Would you pay $5? Where do you draw the line?
I don't know, because I mean, it depends on where you're sitting. Like, I feel like we've done this.
You could have whatever seat you want. You don't get a drink package.
Yeah, so I mean, I feel like we've had this conversation before. Like, either I would just pay a little bit of money, sit in shitty seats, and just hang out at a basketball game, or I would sit on the floor and pay more for that, obviously. But like, that would still be fun, regardless of who was playing for the Blazers.
I don't think watching Skylar Mays bring the ball up is going to be fun.
No, but the Memphis side is.
For a little.
Yeah, I mean, until it gets to like Kennedy Chandler.
You don't want to see what Jonathan Williams has to offer? I mean, it would just be like Mays, Sharp, I don't know, Thibault, who's going to be the four? Watford, Eubanks. That's going to get you in the door.
That's the best case starting lineup too.
Yeah, it really is. It's so brutal. The only thing that I would want to do is be like, oh, I hope Dame traveled with the team.
Right.
Maybe I could see him on the sideline. All righty. Yeah, I mean, maybe you could like mess with Ja a little bit. Finger guns and stuff. Really try to get him out of his game. I'd like to see Triple J, but yeah, that's how many. I would love to know what the true paid attendance is for that one tonight, because boy, oh boy, is that a steaming bag of shit.
Speaking of teams that need to be relegated, DeLon Wright is now questionable.
Of course he is. Well, I guess we should just get into it now, since this kind of crap is going to start popping up.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, the Toronto Raptors are 2 touchdown favorites in Charlotte, 223 total. Raptors have a few Q tags: Gary Trent, OG Anunoby, Precious Achiuwa, Will Barton, and Delano Banton are both available for this one. We've got about 10% ownership coming into Siakam, Van Vliet, Barnes, and Pirtle. Nothing else coming in anywhere else. How much does Trent and Anunoby matter to you?
Not a ton. I mean, if they're both out, it could open up some other stuff, whether that's Precious Achiuwa or Chris Boucher potentially. But it doesn't really matter to me as far as like the main pieces go with Pirtle, Siakam, Van Vliet, and Barnes. I think they're all going to look pretty good one way or the other.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Do you see any difference between those 4 guys relative to salary, other than like the fact that Jakob Poeltl's just a center?
Yeah, no, not really. When you consider salary and positions, I think they're all just pretty even. Right now, they're all projected for between 8 and 11% ownership. They all have between 5 and 10% chance of being optimal. And that's how I see it as well, because like Poeltl has the highest opportunity cost, but the lowest actual cost at 6,500. Siakam and Van Vliet both are very reasonably priced, but when you think about some other plays on the slate, you can see why they're not pulling more ownership. Like, there's a bunch of really good point guards that are $500 or so less expensive than Van Vliet. You have Brandon Ingram that's not that much more than Pascal Siakam and playing out of his mind. So like, as you talk through the slate, there's just going to be guys where it's like, oh yeah, I probably like them a little bit more than Van Vliet or Siakam. Same goes for Scotty Barnes at 7,300. So it just strikes me as a spot where all of those guys should be getting some ownership, because it is a good matchup. We do know that they'll play plenty of minutes, but there's not one of them that stands out individually as like the clear top guy.
If we don't have both guys, who starts?
Achiuwa?
Okay. 3,400?
Yeah, I think he'd be fine if he starts. I think he's fine.
Okay.
Is that your guess also?
That seems like the most likely. No, they're not going to start Achua and Jakob Poeltl together, are they?
Why not?
I mean, no, just guessing. I don't know. Do they ever play alongside each other
They
at this
did,
point?
if I remember correctly, they did the other day a good amount because it surprised me.
Okay. Man, I don't. Oof. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it were like Barton, honestly.
Yeah, they could go that route too. Achua's played 71 minutes with Poeltl.
Okay. I'd be surprised if it was Achua.
I wish I could remember what game it was because there was a game where Achua got a substantial amount next to Poeltl.
On the 19th, they definitely played a couple minutes alongside of each other. I mean, there's only been 2 games recently where he's played enough minutes to matter, and Poeltl only played 23 in the game that Achua played 24 and a half. I mean, keep your eye on it. It's 7:00. We don't have to give a shit. Yeah. We should have that information one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, Will Barton's a perfectly fine guess also.
Yeah. $3,400 Achua, if he's starting and you start giving him, 20 to 24 minutes, is going to look solid enough on a per minute basis. Anything else for the Raptors?
Nope.
Well, things aren't all that great for Charlotte today. The Hornets going to be without LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre, Cody Martin, Gordon Hayward, and PJ Washington, who are arguably the 6 best guys on the team, depending on where you want to rank Mark Williams. Oh, by the way, Mark Williams doubtful. Also, Q tag on DSJ. We've got about 25% ownership coming into $5,500 Nick Richards. We got 23% ownership coming into 4K power forward center Kai Jones. JT Thor is around 10%. The DSJ ownership will matter, but maybe not too much considering Teo Maledon is already 6,100. I don't know what Xavier Sneed or Kobe Simmons are, but they are both flat 3K and they're getting dangerously close to having to play real minutes. Who do you want to go to as the best option here from Charlotte?
So I feel the best about the front court. We have Mark Williams doubtful, so that clears up some of the uncertainty from this morning where it wasn't really clear if this was going to be the game where Nick Richards starts and Kai Jones backs him up, or if they're just now going with Mark Williams starting and one of those guys backing him up, or what they're doing. But now we have Mark Williams doubtful, so I assume Nick Richards is going to get the start. I assume Kai Jones is going to back him up. They are shorthanded, so you certainly could see them play alongside each other a little bit as well. But at 5,500 for Richards and 4K flat, power forward eligible for Kai Jones, they do both just look like good values. Richards, you still are dealing with that opportunity cost at center where if he does just have like an average game, you're going to be in trouble because there's a lot of really good low-owned centers today. But he's cheap enough where he's going to look good. You're assuming he's playing around 30 minutes or so. He's at 1.08 DraftKings points per minute with no Oubre or Rozier this year. Kai Jones is at 0.82 DraftKings points per minute without those guys. So they both look like good values. Outside of that, prices have come up on this team. So you have JT Thor at 4,600. Not a very good point per minute guy, but does play plenty of minutes. Got the start last game, played 34 minutes. Svi Mikhailuk, 33 and a half minutes last game. He's getting 1% ownership because he's up to 6,200. Teo Maledon, 6,100, like you said. So, like Mikhailuk and Maledon start to look better if Dennis Smith Jr. is out, but those price tags have come up. The front court is where I'm the most interested with Jones and Richards.
Do you have a preference between Richards and Jones? Like, do you see either guy looking better?
Probably Jones just because of the position.
Yeah.
There's a lot of centers today that are low owned, but that are like 6 to 7K or 6K to 7,500 that look, that have very high ceilings. So like if Nick Richards goes out there and gets you like 30 DraftKings points, it's probably actively hurting you in tournaments. Whereas if Kai Jones with power forward eligibility at 4K goes out there and gets you like 25, 26, you're not going to be thrilled, but it's not burying you like it does if Richards does that.
Yeah. And I assume they care more about Kai Jones than they do Nick Richards. I don't really know how that totally works, but Nick Richards was like a late 2nd round pick. Kai Jones was, the 19th selection.
Didn't they just give Richards an extension?
They did, but it's not that kind of extension. Good memory though. That's probably not one that you should just like have the recall for, but it's like basically the smallest extension that anybody's ever signed in the history of extensions.
Got it.
He got 3 years, 15 million. So 5 years for 2 straight years and then a non-guaranteed on the end. So like he got like 2 years, 10 million tacked onto it. Um, people don't normally sign that kind of extension. So they locked him up to be there. But yeah, I mean, Kai Jones was like the 19th pick or something crazy. So, it's not going to take much for them to just play more minutes to Kai Jones. And I did give them a couple alongside each other.
Yeah.
If DSJ ends up out, how much does that matter to you?
I mean, it makes Teo Maledon look better. He played 41 minutes against Toronto last game. James Bouknight played 25 off the bench. McGowan's played 30. Like, it opens up more minutes for sure. But it's still, you're still not going to be like comfortable going to Mikhailuk and Maledon at those prices, but you at least can. Whereas if Smith is in, I think it's tough to get there at all.
All righty. Anything else for Charlotte?
Nope.
All right. Let's go to the Miami Heat. They are 13.5-point favorites in Detroit, 217 total. This one is just real ultra disgusting. For Miami, Bam is probable. Kyle Lowry is questionable. Jamal Cain and Orlando Robinson both available. I don't know how much that matters. We got we'll just call it 10% going to Bam, to Butler, to Hero. Who's the best play for Miami, if there is one?
I think Hero, but you could make a case for any of Hero, Bam, Butler. The price tag on Bam is nice, 7,500. Good matchup. The reason that I didn't immediately say him, though, is just because there is so much opportunity cost at center, and there's a lot of guys in that price range that look pretty good. Tyler Hero is at this $6,700 price tag. Point guard and shooting guard eligible, so that's nice. You can get him into a couple extra roster spots, or an extra roster spot with the shooting guard eligibility. Still cheap, still playing big minutes. And then Butler at 8,800, 8% owned. Certainly gives you a nice ceiling. I think he would be getting more ownership, except for you have Brandon Ingram for only $500 more. But all three of those guys just look like solid plays, and I don't see anything else really worth mentioning on a 13-gamer.
Yeah, neither do I. And I don't really see Kyle Lowry's status mattering all that much, other than, I guess, it allows you to get to Gabe Vincent if that's a thing you want to do. He shouldn't matter on a day like today, though.
Right.
Do you assume Love moves back into the starting lineup?
Hadn't really given it any thought, but sure.
I just assume that they didn't want to start Love alongside Cody Zeller and really just get bludgeoned defensively, so they moved him to the backup center. And now that Bam's back, I assume they bring Love back.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
It don't have anything else to me at all.
I agree. Ignoring the rest of Miami, we'll talk about Detroit, who do not have a single guy above 10% ownership. Killian Hayes is the high man at 9.5. No Marvin Bagley here to go along with the other 27 dudes that are out for the Pistons. I think Hayes is the best option here. I assume Omer Uri is now starting for Bagley. That makes him certainly viable at 4,400, but I don't see anything from Detroit that I want to go crazy for.
No, I think it's a tough matchup. I do think the pricing is a little bit soft in terms of the upside offered. I'm with you on Killian Hayes at 5,800. That's just a cheap price tag for what's likely to be 33 or 34 minutes of Killian Hayes, but also at the center position. Jalen Duren and James Wiseman, 5,400 on DraftKings for Wiseman, 5,100 for Duren. These guys are playing 48 minutes. It's just a matter of how those minutes are distributed. And if you get 24 apiece, then chances are neither of them end up looking great. But any game where you get 26, 27 from Duren or 28, 29 from Wiseman certainly has the potential for them to really pay off that price tag nicely. So at very little ownership, I am interested in them in tournaments. Omer Uri, like you said, is fine as a value option. He'd be popular on smaller slates, but today he's not going to be very popular and probably shouldn't be. Jaden Ivey, even at 7,100, has a nice ceiling, but I think Hayes is the easiest guy to get to. Duren and Wiseman both certainly work as direct pivots to Nick Richards, at 1/5 the ownership or so, but also, you could clearly play them alongside Richards. You're still getting nice upside from that position at cheap price tags, and then you're able to pay up elsewhere.
Anything else here for the Pistons?
Nope.
All righty. Let's move to the Cleveland Cavaliers, 5-point favorites in Orlando, 222 total. And for the 700 people that are here, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done it already. We're at 80. We should be at 100. Let's get to triple digits quickly. For Cleveland, oh, God, I'm tired of talking about this team, too. Everybody that's normally available is available, except for Isaac Okoro, who is out for this one. Highest owned guy for Cleveland is $7,500 Darius Garland. He's only 9% owned. However, I think that he very clearly looks like the best option from Cleveland. What do you want to do with Garland? And then how do you feel about Mobley, Mitchell, and Jared Allen, who finally came back on Sunday?
Yeah, so I mean, the price tag on Darius Garland does look good. He played 39 minutes last game. Typically, you're getting around 36 from him. Clearly he's not as good when Donovan Mitchell is in, but he's still very good. The reason I think that you're not seeing more ownership come into Garland is that as we talk through this slate, you're also going to have DeJounte Murray without Trae Young at this price point. You have De'Aaron Fox at this price point. You have Jamal Murray potentially without Jokic at this price point. So CJ McCollum is this price point as well. So there's just a lot of point guards in this price range that all look very similar to each other. So you should really see the ownership kind of spread out amongst those guys. But Darius Garland certainly looks good. I like Donovan Mitchell in tournaments at 3% owned. You know the type of upside he gives you. Relatively scoring dependent, but also playing big minutes in a good matchup at 3% owned. You're kind of you're paying up to be contrarian to an extent because you do have this abundance of guards that are like $1,500 less than him and don't project that far behind him. But Donovan Mitchell is certainly capable of giving you that game where you just look back and you're like, oh yeah, you needed Donovan Mitchell to win today. He has that kind of upside for sure. And then Jared Allen at 6,700 is one of the many center options in this range that just are not getting ownership because there are so many of them that ownership is going to end up being spread out. But if you get 32, 33 minutes from Allen, he can easily give you a nice double-double in this spot.
I don't have anything else to add here, whether it's Dean Wade or LeVert or something. It just doesn't matter. You don't have to go digging on a day like today.
Yeah.
On the Orlando side, this might be the worst team that you can get to today. Highest owned guy is Franz Wagner at 6,400. He is 3.4% owned. Work your way through a Wagner, Banchero, Fultz, Carter, or last guy in if you must. But a matchup against Cleveland is bad. And these guys are all priced basically exactly where they should be.
Yeah, I have nothing from this team. They're healthy and they're in a pretty unappealing matchup. Obviously, any of those main four starters, Carter, Banchero, Fultz, Wagner, are capable of having a big game. But this is a 13-game slate. If you're really going to start getting into they could play well, then you already have like an overwhelming amount of good plays to choose from today. If you're going to start going into he might have a good game, then you're just getting very, very bogged down. So I'm with you. I think this is one of the least appealing teams on the slate.
There we go. NBA Live Before Lock will be the show that comes up after this. They will go from 6 until 7:30. So make sure you're sticking around on this stream. You don't have to go anywhere. It just continues for you. And if you're more interested on the baseball side, we don't have any baseball shows going live tonight, but we do have a baseball promo for you. That promo code is going to be PLAYBALL. That's going to get you our MLB package for 9 days, and it's going to cost you $9. That's $1 a day for those of you that aren't that great at math, like Adam, for instance. Projections, ownership, the top stack tool, the top pitchers tool, our internal Discord, if that's what you're interested in. We've got a lot going on, lots of data on the baseball side. It's a lot easier to compile too. So if you're interested in whatever we have for baseball, and you should be, it's a fantastic product. The top stacks tool is massive for what I do. You can see the code on the screen right now. Click the link in the description or in chat. Go sign up. $9, 9 days. The Milwaukee Bucks, 13.5-point favorites at a minimum. That could move a little bit bigger against your Washington Wizards, who are just very much dog shit right now. No Grayson Allen or Chris Middleton for the Bucks. Potentially no Javon Carter. Questionable there. 21% ownership coming into $11,400 Giannis Antetokounmpo. No ownership coming into anybody else from Milwaukee. I am more than happy to pay up for Giannis today against the Wizards.
Yeah, same here. Giannis looks great, and it's nice because he comes with forward eligibility as well. There are good forward plays today, but not to the extent that there are centers and guards, and that's normally the case. So, we're going to get to Embiid and potentially Jokic in this price range as well, but both of them come with the increased opportunity cost of being center only, whereas Giannis doesn't. So you get him playing without Middleton, which is a little bit of a bump. You get him playing against a garbage Washington team. Everything looks really, really good for Giannis. He is pretty easily my favorite pay-up option.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Just very easy to get to. Having that power forward eligibility, massive, and shouldn't meet a ton of resistance from whatever they're trotting out there for the Wizards today.
Yeah, should not.
No. Can you justify $8,500 Drew, or is he just like a guy that shows up potentially?
He's a guy that shows up potentially. It would be a lot easier to justify if you didn't have the 10-name list of good guards that are $1,000 less than him.
Okay. On the off chance that Javon Carter is also out, does that create anything for you?
like Ingles probably plays more, but I don't really know. Like there's a chance that you just end up getting minutes for like some combination of like Matthews, Dragic, Green that makes everything useless.
Yeah.
If we were to get and like Pat Connaughton could play more at 4,300. I just don't know how much that even matters on this slate. If Pat Connaughton starts, I would be interested in him at 4,300. If Ingles or Crowder start, I would be interested in them. I can't imagine Goran Dragic starts, but if he did, I'd be interested in him. Outside of that, I don't think I would really care.
Okay. And now we go to your stupid Washington Wizards. No Denny for today. No Monty Morris, Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis, and I guess Isaiah Todd. And in the nicest little bit of news, we also have a Q tag on DeLon Wright, who to me was pretty clearly the best option that you could get to from Washington. The Jordan Goodwin 60% ownership just did feel a little bit weird, even though I do think that he was a good play. That said, we did have DeLon Wright at 43% ownership. We did have Jordan Goodwin at 61%. If DeLon Wright's not playing, that's certainly firming up that Jordan Goodwin ownership.
Yeah, I was with you on Goodwin, where I think he's clearly a good play if DeLon Wright's in, but I was a little concerned because, like, if you look at the last game that they played against the Knicks, now granted, Denny Avdia was in this game as well, but Jordan Goodwin played 24 and a half minutes, including like 3.5 minutes of garbage time. And he's a good point per minute guy. He's like 1.1 DraftKings points per minute without these main pieces on the floor. But 60% ownership for a dude that legitimately might play 20 minutes is concerning. But then you take out Denny Avdia and now potentially also take out DeLon Wright. And we know that they'll play Goodwin alongside Wright as well. So Avdia being out is enough for me to feel better about Goodwin. If you take Wright out, I assume Goodwin is starting in his place and looking really, really good at 4K.
That's a lock button play for Jordan Goodwin. If
about
Wright is out, right?
Yeah, it's as close as you're going to get. Yeah.
MPE 4K, like there's just, you need a real disaster scenario here for like they don't have enough guys to like not continue to play him, I think.
Right.
I mean, they do, but like I don't think they will.
Right. If DeLon Wright is out, Jordan Goodwin just becomes like as close to a lock as you're gonna get me to say. But then like $3,400 Kendrick Nunn starts to look interesting because there's so many minutes opened up for him. Maybe you get Xavier Cooks in the rotation. I'm kind of assuming Anthony Gill starts in place of Avdia, but I don't know. Could be Quentin Jackson. But Kendrick Nunn, I think, would step up as well at 3,400 and start to look interesting.
Yeah, agreed there. How do you feel about the rest of this team? Like Kispert's sort of already priced where he should be, not getting any ownership. And I don't really think that any of this news really matters for him. Like he's kind of at his critical mass for minutes and shots to begin with. What else do you see for Washington? Let's just assume for right now that Wright is out, given the fact that it's a midday downgrade.
Yeah, so definitely want to know what the starting lineup is. It looks like we're expecting it to be Gill as well. We haven't projected for like 21 DraftKings points, 14% ownership. He's not a very good point per minute guy, and I don't typically trust his minutes. Like normally they use him as a spot starter, but they also just are really shorthanded here, so you could actually get mid-20s or so in minutes from him. If he starts, he's certainly playable at 3,300. I'm with you on Kispert. He's got a nice ceiling just because of his playing time and because you should see the offense run through him a little bit more here, but I also don't really know exactly what that looks like because all he can really do is shoot threes. We did have that one game against Philly where he just like was cutting really well and getting up a bunch of shots, and maybe we see that from him here. But even if you look at his rates without most of these guys on the floor this year, he's at like 0.7, 0.75 DraftKings points per minute. So I have trouble trusting that he is about to just go out there and be a totally different offensive player, but the minutes should be there. He is only 5,700. So from that aspect, he looks okay, at least. Johnny Davis played 30 minutes last game. He is awful, but he's 4,200 and should play as many minutes as he can, especially if DeLon Wright is out. I mean, this team sucks right now, but there is a lot of cheap value to be had.
Johnny Davis with the crisp 45.5 true shooting this season.
First round pick.
He was a first round pick. That will go down in history as not a good one of those. Anything else here?
Like Wizards first round picks.
Like if we're getting one of those random idiots, the Quentin Jacksons or Cooks of the world starting, like, does that register to you?
I mean, they'd be 3K and starting. I don't know a lot about either one. I know Cooks just won a title in Australia and then came over here. If they're starting, they're not any worse than Anthony Gill.
There we go. This is fantastic. Yeah, like when I saw DeLon Wright this morning, I was like, oh, he's just an exceptional play. And right. That 43% ownership, like if he's playing and starting, well, I guess we should have that conversation too. Like assuming we're assuming DeLon Wright is out because midday downgrade on a day like today just seems it. But if DeLon Wright is playing today, he's one of the best plays on the board, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And so like Goodwin still would look good at this point because of Avdia being out. But yeah, if DeLon Wright is in, he looks fantastic.
He should be more like average win or something, but we'll let that joke go. Anything else for your Wizards?
What?
I'm implying that Jordan Goodwin should not have the word good.
Oh, got it. I was thinking DeLon Wright. I was like, I don't get it.
You shouldn't have. It wasn't good.
It was not.
No. Salvo G with the super chat said, just wanted to shout out the lineup builder. Played a contrarian lineup that landed me on Jones, Şengün, and Wagner for a top 100 lineup. Congrats, man. Lineup builder is the one to get at this point in time. Anybody can try it out for less than $5. The promo going on for that one. I don't have that promo for today, but it exists. If you want to look for it, go to stochastic.com/promos. On to the 7:30 game. Minnesota, 2-point favorites in Brooklyn, 224 total. For Minnesota, Q tag on Karl Anthony Towns, Q tag on Jalen Noel, Q tag on Austin Rivers. Obviously, Naz Reid out. Highest owned guy is $8,100 Anthony Edwards. I think he looks fantastic in GPPs today just because of that price tag, because of the MPE, but I don't see any priorities from the Wolves.
No, I don't think there's priorities in the sense of like guys that you're just jamming in everywhere, but I am really interested in Minnesota, a few pieces from Minnesota in tournaments. One of them being Anthony Edwards, just pulling 7% ownership, shooting guard, small forward, 8,100. We have him with a 12% chance of being optimal. There's just a really cheap price tag for him playing a lot of minutes. Similarly, you have Towns playing big minutes at 7,800. He hasn't been great this year in general, and certainly since coming back, but the price tag at 7,800 is still pretty cheap for him not being on a minutes limit, just the amount of talent he has. And then Gobert at 8K, it's certainly not a priority because there are so many centers, but he's been playing more minutes without Naz Reid. You had seen the production trend up when Mike Conley came over, but you were typically just getting around like 30, 31 minutes. Now you're getting 35 minutes. The price tag has adjusted, but I think Edwards would be the guy I get to first, followed by Towns, followed by Gobert. But it is a pretty interesting tournament team. Their offense with those three guys together has been awful. They've been really, really good defensively. They've been awful offensively. Maybe that turns around, maybe it doesn't. But if you're going to get discounted Towns and discounted Edwards and the lack of ownership, I'm willing to find out. Yeah,
there's some offense in there to be found. That's right. For sure. I don't know when it happens. Yeah, $7,800 power forward center Towns. Knowing that he's 7,800 and playing like essentially full minutes, like you're projecting him like a normal person, that price would have made very little sense, 6 months ago.
Right.
You'd be like, holy shit, what happened in Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, he's still like a 1.15 DraftKings point per minute guy with Gobert and Edwards this season.
Yeah, I think he looks good. To me, Edwards is the guy that I want to get to most, especially from the position. But either one of those three guys, I think, looks pretty good from a GPP perspective. If Towns happens to be out, does that change anything for you? Seems like everybody's price is sort of already where it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, it would make me like Edwards more. And I guess to some extent Gobert. Kyle Anderson, I would certainly like more, but at 7,100, I can kind of only like him so much. But I think it would definitely make me feel better about Edwards. So in the 4 games Towns has played since his return, where Gobert and Edwards have been in, only one DraftKings point per minute, 24.8% usage rate. But for the season, he's at 1.17 DraftKings points per minute with those guys.
All righty, let's go to the Brooklyn Nets. They actually don't have any injury news to talk about. Ben Simmons is obviously out already. Otherwise, everybody that's normally available is. If you didn't like the game that I mentioned before in terms of Orlando, let me show you the Brooklyn Nets, who the highest owned guy for Brooklyn is Mikal Bridges at 2%. I actually think Bridges, Dinwiddie, and Claxton as a trio all are, in theory, under-owned in GPPs. I'm happy to go that direction, but we're talking about guys that you should have like 6% of, and they're 2. And so like it's a relative thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they are appealing contrarian plays, just given that they're going to play huge minutes. They're good fantasy producers. But like you said, it's not guys that like you should be like planting a flag on saying like, oh yeah, it's Mikal Bridges today. Like I'm very confident he's going to beat the other 15 guys in his price range that project the same as him. They are perfect guys for if you just need a low owned guy in this price range. You take Bridges, you take Claxton, you take Dinwiddie, and then you hope for the best. But outside of, like you said, they're all like 3-ish% optimal, like at 1% ownership. Outside of being guys, they're still low probability plays. They just have no ownership.
Yeah. So I would be happy to have any one of those guys be like a last guy in for today, but it's not going to be any sort of volume. And I'm certainly not getting to anything else from Brooklyn.
Agreed.
Do you have a preference between the three? It's Bridges because he's like a new person.
Probably Bridges. I just think that like he's the so I mean Claxton, you have the opportunity cost of the position. Bridges is shooting guard instead of point guard, so I think shooting guard just a little bit easier to get to. Like there's still plenty of good shooting guards as well, but more good point guards. And then also Bridges is just the one. Dinwiddie can have a big game. If one of these guys was out there and scores like 60 fantasy points, I assume it's Bridges.
Agreed. We now go to Atlanta, 5.5-point underdogs in Chicago. This one changed a little bit earlier today. Trae Young is out. DeAndre Hunter has been out. We've got some ownership coming in here. 25% to DeJounte Murray, 31% to Saddiq Bey at 4,800. No disagreements there, although I do think Murray is underrepresented now at 7,600. I like him generally. I certainly like him a lot more on a day like today without Trae Young around. Massive rate boosts across the board. Bey's minutes look pretty solid. And then you get sort of light bumps to Collins, to Bogdanovich, probably to no one else. Let's start with Murray and Bey. Murray in particular. How you feeling there with no Trae?
Yeah, I think he looks great. I liked him this morning at 7,600. He wasn't really getting any ownership, and I thought that he was a very good pivot to the guys like Darius Garland, Fox, Jamal Murray. But now he's just going to pull most of the ownership in this price range, which I think he should. So, like, keep in mind, there are a lot of good pivots that you can get to because nothing got worse for those other guys that we liked this morning. You just had things get better for DeJounte Murray, and now he's going to get more ownership than the entire group. So, like, should he be 3 times as popular as Darius Garland or those other guys? Probably not, but he's still clearly one of the best plays. He's played 6 games this year with no Trae Young, 1.4 DraftKings points per minute, 30.5% usage rate, 35% assist percentage, 36.5 minutes per game. Just looks very, very good. Point guard, shooting guard also, so you have a little bit more flexibility there. Saddiq Bey looks like a very good value at 4,800. He started and played 33 minutes in regulation last game in place of Hunter. I assume he starts in place of Hunter again today. Trae Young being out certainly shouldn't hurt him either.
Do you want to do anything more with like Collins or Bogdanovich? I mean, Bogdanovich now at 5,200, shooting guard, small forward, has the path to be a part of closing lineups.
Yeah, I would expect him to close. Do you think he starts?
They just never do it, and it feels like they don't even do it even with a new coach.
Yeah, I'll say that
he should, right? Like he should. The starting lineup should be Murray, Bogdanovich, Bey, Collins, Capella. Like that should just be the starting lineup. It's the most obvious starting lineup. I don't trust them to do that.
He has started 8 games this season. He has not started he has not started any of the games under the Trae Young with Young out and Murray in.
Okay. Yeah, he should start, and if he does, you're probably going 30, 32 minutes, at which point he certainly looks a lot better at 5,200, gets a slight rate bump across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, like him at 7%.
I don't know who's going to start. Like, it could be Bogdanovich. You could get Aaron Holiday getting the spot start at 3K, playing like 24 to 26 minutes, which would be somewhat interesting, I guess. You could get AJ Griffin in there at 3,400. It's tough because DeJounte Murray can be the point guard or he can be the 2 guard. And so we don't know which route they're going to go. But whoever starts, I think, if it's one of those 3, is going to at least be somewhat interesting. If it's Bogdanovich at 5,200, clearly he's going to look good, shooting guard, small forward at that price tag. If it's Griffin or Aaron Holiday, you're not going to trust their playing time as much as you would trust Bogdanovich's, but they're also essentially minimum salary. So they would still at least be somewhat interesting. John Collins does look a little bit better at 5,100. Still not going crazy with him, but with Trae Young out, you should get more usage for him. Capella is one of the 6K to 7K centers that isn't popular and does have a high ceiling, but also isn't popular just because he's not markedly better than all the other guys either.
There's no chance you're going to anybody for Atlanta that isn't starting other than Bogdanovich, right?
Right.
Okay. Well, then we go over to the Chicago side. Bulls have Alex Caruso probable, basically the same team they normally are. 17% ownership coming to Zach LaVine at 7,900 doesn't make a ton of sense to me. That seems like an outlier ownership projection. 7% going to Vooch, 7% going to DeRozan. It's the same story we always have, but why is LaVine just like getting it all for today?
Shooting guard, small forward, cheap price tag, good matchup. Probably going a little over-owned, but I think it's the positional eligibility. You have a ton of good centers, a ton of good point guards, not as many shooting guards, not many small forwards at all. So I think that's what it is. He just fits really easily. In the placeholder cash lineup I built before the show. He showed up on DraftKings as my small forward. So I think it's just that position. Like if you can get the Brandon Ingram, great, but that can be tough.
I was thinking like Edwards.
I think Edwards is a good tournament pivot. I think Levine projects better.
I have Levine higher by a half point, so I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, he projects a little bit better. He's a little bit cheaper. But I do think Edwards is a very like natural pivot there at 1/3 the ownership. But yeah, I do like Levine. Vooch and DeRozan, if you can get there, great. Vooch at 7,900 is a favorable price tag. Nice matchup against Atlanta, but again, just so many similar centers. So yeah, I think Levine's just the easiest one to get to from a roster construction standpoint.
I don't have anything else here to say about Chicago.
No, me neither. Matt Butler on Twitter did message us. I thought Bogdan had started a game recently. He said it was March 22nd with DeJounte Murray out and Trae Young in.
Sweet. Matt Butler, thank you. You're clearly listening. Denver Nuggets, 9-point favorites in Houston, 230 total. There's really nothing we can do here right now. Q tag on Nikola Jokic. Don't ask me if he's playing or not today. If he does, I agree with the discussion that you and Laffy had this morning. If Nikola Jokic is playing, you're projecting him for like 34 minutes and you're treating him as if everything is just 100% normal. Whether or not that's happening, who the hell knows? 10% ownership coming into Murray. I don't find Jokic to be all that interesting just because of what else is around him at the top. He's clearly Nikola Jokic against the Rockets. So like, the ceiling exists, but I prefer Giannis in that case. If Jokic is out, which I think is probably the easier discussion point, what do you want to do with Denver?
So it's not necessarily easier because we also have Najee questionable. So
that's good point.
You get the potential for a very messy front court. You had Jeff Green get the start last game. Najee didn't play that one. I assume that Green would start in this case as well. He played 26 minutes in that game. He's 3,300. If he's starting against the Rockets, by all means, play Jeff Green. If Jokic is out, it also makes Murray, Porter, KCP, Gordon, Brown all look better. If Jokic is in, I'm with you. Like getting to Jokic is great. Obviously, I'm not going to be upset if I do, but it's just going to be a lot easier to get to Giannis because of the positional eligibility. Jamal Murray still looks good if Jokic is in. He's just like Garland, getting a little bit less ownership now than he was this morning because of DeJounte Murray. And Murray does project better than DeJounte Murray does project better than Jamal Murray, but Jamal Murray makes sense either alongside DeJounte Murray or as a pivot where you're still getting a very high upside player against the Rockets. If Jokic gets ruled out, I assume that ownership comes up at least a little bit on Jamal Murray as well. Porter and KCP, both reasonable values. I had mentioned KCP this morning that I thought he was a pretty good pivot to Jordan Montgomery or Jordan. Wow. Wrong sport, wrong position, wrong everything. Jordan Goodwin. I don't even know where Montgomery came from. Goodwin.
No idea.
Yeah. I don't know. It's baseball season though. Jordan Goodwin. I don't really think that anymore now that we have Avdia out and potentially Wright out. Like, I thought it was an interesting pivot when you had 12% ownership coming into KCP and 60% to Goodwin. And there was a chance Goodwin was going to play 22 minutes and KCP was going to play 32. I don't see it that way anymore. I still think KCP is fine at low ownership, but I'm not advocating for the just play KCP instead of Jordan Goodwin thing anymore.
No, not so much. Keep your eyes peeled on this one, guys. Obviously, the Jokic news matters a ton. On the Houston side, these guys continue to make it easy. And I mean, this has to be a conversation point for GPPs. There's no ownership coming into any of these guys. At 5.5% to Şengün at 6,900 is the high mark. These guys should be owned more in GPPs, especially if Jokic happens to be out, which no one's going to react to.
Right. It just makes it likely that the game's closer. And Denver sucks without Jokic on the floor.
Yes.
But yeah, it's like a really weird pattern with the Rockets because they keep being double digit or close to double digit dogs. So people don't play them. Then they play huge minutes. Either they keep the game close or like the last game against the Lakers, they ultimately get blown out, but they still play huge minutes. And so their price tags don't move because they weren't popular. But then the next game, they're double digit dogs again. So people don't play them. And it's just like a revolving cycle where they've been one of my favorite tournament teams for a while because clearly they're not safe, but even looking at this Lakers game where you lost 3.5 minutes to garbage time or 4 minutes really to garbage time, Jalen Green played 40 minutes. Şengün played 38, Jabari Smith, 33, 36.5 for Porter, 28 for KJ Martin. And he didn't play it all in the fourth quarter. Like if this game's competitive, these guys are playing big minutes. Alperen Şengün, 5% owned, 6,900 with the potential to play mid to, I guess, upper 30s in minutes. Jalen Green can play 40 minutes at 7K and no ownership. Kevin Porter Jr., same thing at 7,700. I understand why the ownership isn't higher in that there are quote unquote safer plays, but I really think Houston's getting slept on in terms of like the most likely case here is that this game is at least relatively competitive for most of the game, especially when you talk about a Denver team that even if Jokic is in, their bench cannot keep other teams from closing the gap. Like I've mentioned it before, like every time that you don't play Jokic, you look and he's going nuts in the first quarter and you're like, oh, it's already a 20-point Denver lead. So maybe I'll get lucky and he won't play the fourth. And then 3 minutes into the second quarter, it's a 2-point game because the second unit is so bad. So, I mean, it's just so hard for Denver to actually put teams away and blow them out to the point that they're not going to play in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think the idea of getting to Green, Porter, and Şengün in particular as a trio, I'm very, very interested in. This is a team where like, if they're all, let's just say they're all 4% owned, I'd be happy to have like 12 to 16 of all three guys. You're 4Xing. No one of those guys is like a death sentence in your lineups. Like you're not overextended, but this is the spot that looks fantastic from an ownership perspective.
Yeah, really, really interested in these guys.
Alrighty. I got nothing else here for Houston. So I think that we can move on. We got to talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That is going to be Bet365. It's an incredible deal. I know Lofty's talked about how good of a deal it is on his shows, and I am here to 100% agree. Bet $1 after using the link in the description or chat. You got to bet $1. You will get $200 in bonus bets. Now, that's only available in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, but we're adding more, or they will be adding more states in the near future. $1. Your worst case scenario here is that you lose $1, but maybe you use some of the other betting tools that we have at Stokastic/OddsShopper, and you put together a couple solid bets and build yourself a really nice bankroll. But worst case scenario, you're out $1. You're not going to find better deals than this one. The deposit is required. Bonus bet winnings are added to your bonus bet balance, and the bonus bet wager is excluded from returns. There are terms and conditions, but it's bet $1, get 200. You got to be 21 or over. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Take advantage. The more people that we get to sign up for this Bet365 deal, the more likely we are to get rid of that stupid-ass graphic with Eric's dumb face on it. So that should help everybody out pretty dramatically if we can get rid of it. That's an uncomfortable picture. Yikes. Portland Trailblazers.
Javon Carter out for Milwaukee. Nick Richards confirmed starting for Charlotte. Steve Clifford said that Kai Jones will play some at the 4 and some at the 5.
There we go. Thank you for that one. Portland Trailblazers. They shouldn't even be allowed to be called the Trailblazers. This is a very different team. I don't even know where to start. They're 17.5-point dogs against Memphis. 229
and they're not the biggest
total.
Underdog on the slate.
Sure aren't. I mean, like, talking about this is pretty difficult. No Nas Little, no Anthony Simons, Keon Johnson, Jeremy Grant, Justice Winslow, Yusuf Nurkic, Ibu Baji, or Damian Lillard. Questionable tags on Matisse Thybulle, Trendon Watford, Kevin Knox, John Butler, and Cam Reddish. They signed something called Justin Minaya today, who is also available now. They've got the legend known as Jonathan Williams, which is one of the more ridiculous things that anybody will ever say out loud. If you like, the highest owned guy for this team is 9.5% owned Drew Eubanks. Normally in these situations, you just see like a ton of ownership coming into these teams because it's like, well, they don't have enough bodies, and they're not going to have enough bodies. And maybe we get additional ownership when like 4 of these Q tags get ruled out. What the hell do we do here?
If they're all in, I don't really like this team because they do have enough bodies because they've just added an entire new NBA team to their roster. So if everybody's in, you do have enough bodies. You look back at the most recent Portland game and, you got 30 minutes from Skylar Mays, but at 5K, like, are you really getting excited for 30 minutes of Skylar Mays? I'm certainly not. Shannon Sharp played 35 minutes, which, is fine, but at 8K, I'm good. Shaq Harrison didn't play enough for me to, want him. Kevin Knox is up to 5,200. Eubanks is up to 5,800. Eubanks would be the guy that I guess I go to, but like, to me, he's very similar to, Jalen Duren, James Wiseman, just not a great option, not as good as Richards, and then, works as a pivot to Richards. But if all these guys are in, I don't really like any of it because the price tags have come up and they do have a lot of bodies if everybody's active. It's if you start ruling these guys out and you get back to like, oh, we need an 8-man rotation today from Portland, then you kind of can just play whoever is in.
I don't even know what else to say. Like, there's nothing else to add. We don't know who's actually playing. So, it's shrug your shoulders and move on. Right.
Fortunately, it's an 8 p.m. game, so maybe we'll get it at a reasonable time.
Good luck to everybody that's trying to figure this one out. That's all I'll say. I don't have anything else to add for Portland. It's too difficult to talk about when there are 5 Q tags and a new random person.
Yeah,
there's no way he's in he can't be in the salary file.
No, I just wanted to know he's a Ford.
Yeah. I was going to say he's not rosterable.
No, I just wanted to know what position he was.
All right. When we go over to the Memphis side of this one, Grizzlies obviously
he does not even have a Wikipedia page.
Nor should he. I'm more likely to have one than whatever the hell Omar Minaya or whatever his name is.
I thought maybe he was in college.
Dylan Brooks is questionable for today. I have never seen a situation less I don't care what he's questionable with. There is no reason that Dylan Brooks should play this game if he has to have an injury designation today. Just give him the night off. Holy shit.
Yeah, agreed.
Whatever it is, a right hip injury, he should be rested. There's never been a more obvious rest spot in the history of rest spots. 4% owned Ja at 9,900. To me, that's the talking point. You want to pay for that?
I'm interested in it because if this game is competitive, he's playing big minutes. We had Taylor Jenkins come out the other day and say that he wants to get his starters more playing time down the stretch. That's something that, typically one thing that sort of hampers Ja from a DFS standpoint, he's great point per minute, but he averages 32 or 33 minutes per game. And most guys around 10K just give you several minutes more than that. Since Taylor Jenkins said that, we've seen 35 and a half minutes. We've seen 34 minutes and, lost a couple minutes to garbage time last game. He was tracking 35 and a half again. If the Blazers somehow hang in this game, Morant's probably giving you 35 minutes at 9,900, which is a pretty cheap price tag for him, even if he's playing 32 minutes, which, I don't think he is in a close game. Then there's also the chance that, if this game gets out of hand, that John Morant just went out and put up 55 fantasy points in 3 quarters. He can very easily do that as well. So I am interested. It's just there's a lot of really high upside guys. The same case can be made for Jaren Jackson as well. Only 7,700, should do whatever he wants against this team. And again, he's a Ford, which is nice. You don't have as many good Ford plays on the slate. The blowout risk is obviously huge, but if this game blows out, one of Morant, Jackson, Bane pretty much has to be having a big game.
And I said this earlier today on the Process Show, and I want to reiterate it. And Portland's a really good example for it. Toronto, 14 points. Miami, 13. Milwaukee, 13. Let's say Denver, 9. We'll say Portland 17. The Lakers are 10-point favorites. San Antonio, 19-point dogs. One of those giant numbers is going to win outright today. That's just, you should expect that one of these games that you look at we can't be taking those guys. It's going to be a blowout. They're going to win the game. Straight up, just simply be victorious. We just watched Portland beat Minnesota in a game that Minnesota really cared about. It's going to happen.
And also, to your point, everything's relative to each other. So you just named half the slate that's double-digit dogs. If you're just going to run the other direction from all of the double-digit favorites, you're Xing off half the slate and a lot of really good plays.
Anunoby will play. Gary Trent unlikely to play. So
Achua is now probable also.
Yeah.
And Barton's available.
Essentially uninteresting there. So don't look at these games with a high total and think that you need to draw a line through some of these teams. You're going to do yourself a disservice. One of these teams is going to win outright. Be ready for it. Won't be fun to watch either. That's for sure.
How would be they're going to score more points than the opponent.
Yeah. Anything else from Memphis?
No, I just really like the idea of Morant and Jaren Jackson at low ownership in tournaments.
The Sacramento Kings are 4-point underdogs in New Orleans, 236 total. Not too much to talk about here. We got a Q tag on Malik Monk. That matters to a degree. Probably
went through shoot around.
There you go. So probably playing for today. 10% ownership coming into criminally underpriced De'Aaron Fox at 7,700, but even still, you can only get to so much ownership because we got a lot of those 7-8K guys today. After that, I don't find anything all that interesting for the Kings. Talk about Fox.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like criminally underpriced, except for in the context of the slate, he's kind of not because like every guard that looks like him is also too cheap. So he's just another one of these good 7,500 to 8K guards. Played some De'Aaron Fox, he looks good. And I'm with you. I can't really get to anything else. Clearly, Domantas Sabonis has a lot of upside, but he is center only. Where I am paying up, I'm going to prefer getting to Embiid or Jokic.
Giannis to a degree.
Yeah. Certainly prefer. I just met centers.
Gotcha.
But yeah, certainly prefer Giannis. But yeah, it's pretty much De'Aaron Fox and then probably nothing from the Kings.
Yeah, I agree. On the off chance that Monk happens to be out, you're probably bumping Kevin Huerter a minute or two, and nothing else is really looking all that interesting. Does Kessler Edwards become a thing?
I can't imagine he becomes a thing on the slate unless like we get 3 guys out.
Okay, just wanted to put it out there. On the Pelicans end of this one, Alvarado out, Zion out. Everybody else that's normally available is. We've got 17% owned $9,300 Brandon Ingram, who has been on one as of late. 10% ownership coming to CJ McCollum at 7,500 if De'Aaron Fox isn't your particular cup of tea. I think Ingram and McCollum are the two best options. I might actually slightly prefer McCollum to Ingram, but the fact that Ingram plays small forward and CJ McCollum plays point guard really nerfs that ability because there's just 100 more of McCollum today.
Also, the role Ingram's been playing since he came back. In the 12 games he's played since returning, 32% usage rate, 36.5% assist percentage, like 1.35 DraftKings points per minute, I think, off the top of my head. CJ McCollum's been about a fantasy point per minute guy over that stretch. Still has a 24% usage rate, 20% assist percentage. McCollum's still like good play, but I think very comparable to a lot of those guys priced around him. Whereas you don't have the same level of competition, opportunity cost at small forward. And then Ingram, again, playing huge minutes. The entire offense is running through him. Great matchup against Sacramento. I mentioned it earlier. If you have to save a little bit of money and get to Zach LaVine at small forward, that's fine. Or, like Anthony Edwards in tournaments. But I really want to get to Ingram as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, I think he looks really good. I got him at 1.33 for this game. Like, to me, it looks fantastic. No issue going either direction. I guess I do think that McCollum is, I don't want to say that he's under-owned because he's not, because there's just a bunch of those versions of him. He's actually getting some of the ownership.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you have any interest in
against Sacramento?
What'd you say?
Interest in, I was just saying great spot against Sacramento. Do I have interest in Joe Val? I mean, no. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I am too. Like he played 28 minutes last game, but we have clearly seen Larry Nance come back to life. I think he closed the last game also, but you still got 28 from Joe Val. You had gotten like 24, 25 the 2 previous games. So I'm certainly more concerned about Joe Val's playing time than we were a week or 2 ago. It's just such a good matchup that if Joe Val just goes out there and double doubles in the first half, it's not like you're going to be surprised. But once again, it's I believe 3 games in a row now Larry Nance is closed.
Yeah, I mean, 7,400 is quite the healthy price tag for him. I don't ever trust him. I feel like I haven't gotten him right all year, which is also about as frustrating as it gets. But yeah, like you're not mad about it. He's definitely the 3rd best option of anybody for the Pels. That feels, pretty firm, I guess. Let's see. I lost a window here. If you play Ingram, then are you not taking Giannis in those lineups? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, no reason you can't.
Yeah.
Like on DraftKings, you have like $4,900 left. If you start Ingram, Giannis, you can certainly make good lineups.
Yeah, it's not going to be too hard to land on that. There's a lot of value out there at this point. I mean, Giannis, Ingram, Goodwin, Johnny Davis, Bay, DeLon Wright if he's in. If he's not, then you're creating more value for the Wizards. DeJounte Murray can still end up in those lineups. Kai Jones is out there for you. Anthony Gill. I mean, I don't think it would be hard to build that kind of lineup at all.
Yeah, I mean, as we were talking, just kind of throwing something together. I have 4,900 left for like a guard that I don't see anything I really like, but I'm sure I can figure out how to close it out if I have to. But Goodwin, Murray, Ingram, Giannis, Richards, Kai Jones, Gill,
yeah,
and then whoever you fit in.
You want to get Sadiq Bey in there for 4,800 and move some stuff around, like that's going to work for you too. Yeah. There's infinite cheap guys for a day like today, that's for sure. They might not be all the way at the bottom, but they exist.
Right. Yeah. And the mid range is underpriced. Even, the Giannis, the top guys are underpriced too. So you have that. Then you also have the potential of Portland guys getting ruled out. Like there's a lot of ways this can go.
Boston Celtics are 2.5-point dogs in Philly, 227 total. If you're watching a game today, this is probably the one to keep your eye on. Not much going on, though, for Boston. Q-tag on Jaylen Brown matters. I don't know if it's going to really create anything that you got to go crazy for other than $10,400 Tatum becomes way more interesting. Al Horford is available. Time Lord is out. Highest owned guy for Boston right now is 4.5% owned Horford. Do you expect to get to anything for Boston without Jaylen Brown being out?
Not particularly. Just a healthy team, not a great spot. You have so many good spots with favorable pricing today. And then for Boston, you just have everybody about where they should be. If Brown's out, then sure, it's going to make Tatum look better. Brogdon and Smart and White all look better. But it's just really difficult to want to get there. Much better game to watch than DFS game. The hope, I guess, if you're playing this game would be that this one ends up being competitive and everything else goes to shit. But
yeah. Where does Tatum rank for you at 10-4 if we happen to not have Jaylen Brown?
Still behind Giannis, ahead of Embiid and Jokic.
Yeah.
Just because of the position.
Is he the second best pay up option then at that point?
Probably, because the only other pay up options are centers.
I mean, if you want to work your way all the way down to I was just going to say $9,900 Morant.
But yeah, I would probably go Tatum over Morant just because, again, the forward positions are really nice.
On the opposite side of this one for Philadelphia, who I desperately need to pick up a win, and I would really like to lock this bet down finally. It looks so good for me, but I don't trust these bastards until it's over. 6% owned Embiid is the high man here at 11.1. Harden is at 2.5%. I think Harden's getting slept on here at 9,500, but again, we've had this conversation before now with 7K guys. So what do you do here with Philly?
Yeah, if you get to a little bit of Harden or Embiid, that's fine. They're just both difficult to get to because of their price tags relative to other guys at the position. You're expecting to pay down a good amount at center with guys like Nick Richards. Then you also have all of those good mid-range centers. And then if you are paying up, at least right now, I prefer getting to Jokic at center over Embiid if Jokic is in. So it just makes it tough to prioritize him. But anytime Embiid is 6% owned, it's not like you're wrong for playing him. Same goes for Harden at 2.5% ownership. Technically going under-owned, 6% chance of being optimal. Never going to be upset about getting to a good amount of Harden, but you're also just giving up. Not only do you have those cheaper guards, but I like Brandon Ingram more than I like Harden at a weaker position.
Oh, for sure. There's just too many point guards.
Right.
It's a lot easier to want to go to someone like Ingram and then pay down to a 7K guy than vice versa. Great game to watch, though. That's for sure. What else is great, guys? That would be BetPro. Now, normally I would talk about the NBA side of BetPro, where you can get a 7-day free trial, $29.95 per week or $99.95 per month. But you'll get that free trial with either subscription. We're giving you the odds of winning the bet, your expected value on that bet. So basically an ROI calculation. We're giving you the amount that you should bet from your bankroll. So that percentage is also available for you. And it's all in one giant table. You can get all of the data, multiple sports books right in front of your face. But you can also get that now for our MLB Bet Pro package. That one is new now that the MLB season has started. Same circumstances, 7-day free trial for new users, $30 a week, $100 a month. Adam, are you doing MLB Bet Pro right now or just NBA?
Both.
There we go. Dueling Bet Pro videos for Adam on the Odd Shopper channel. You can check those out every single day. Basically the same for MLB and for NBA, but NBA is going to be thinning out a bit as we get into the playoffs. MLB is where you're going to want to be. We're going to have a ton of potential bets for you every single day. So make sure you're checking it out, guys. Again, that is Bet Pro. Link in the description or in chat. 3 games to go. Let's close this bad boy out. Excuse me. Woo! I'm glad that I got to the mute button there. That was a pretty aggressive cough. Los Angeles Lakers, 9.5-point favorites in Utah, 235 total in this one. We've got the consistent Q tag on LeBron James, probable tag on AD, questionable tag on D'Angelo Russell. We at least have to be aware of the Lakers for right now because they do play the Clippers tomorrow. So they're traveling back from Utah tonight. Clippers are not on a back-to-back, but Lakers are on a back-to-back. We don't know how that's going to shake out. So be prepared for typical Lakers fuckery today. You never know. Highest owned guy is LeBron James at 9,800. I think AD is a better play, but relative to the rest of the centers, it makes it a little bit more difficult. How are you handling the Lakers? Are you even going to bother?
Not really. I mean, I think LeBron is the best play, everything considered. 9,800 small forward, which is a relatively weak position. He's getting 1/4 the ownership of Brandon Ingram. If you want to argue that LeBron isn't getting enough ownership compared to Ingram, fine. I prefer Ingram. He's cheaper. I think he projects better. But yeah, it's a really, really difficult team to get to when prices haven't adjusted from them getting healthy. And if Russell's out, I don't really care. Like Schroeder's 5,400. He would probably start and be a decent value. Other than that, I don't think much would change.
I'm going to ask you the question. I know you don't have an actual answer to it. How do you think they're going to play this with AD and LeBron?
No idea. I mean, they still need to win, don't they?
I mean, yes, but at the same time, like, do you expect LeBron James to be playing a back-to-back?
I have no idea. I mean, Davis is probable, so I assume he's playing.
I'm not going to make any assumptions on that one, but I'm leaning towards that one. You have to, I think you have to assume LeBron is not playing one of these two games.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. If he's out,
what does that do for you for AD?
It's still hard to get to him on DraftKings. I think you can get there on FanDuel because he has power forward, but it's just still really tough to get to Davis at center on DraftKings. Is
he a better play than Joel Embiid at that point?
I think so. I would like Davis more than Embiid and Jokic. I still wouldn't like him as much as Giannis.
Man, that gets really close. The power forward eligibility for Giannis is everything there.
Right.
Okay. I don't have anything else to add here. Look, the good news is you're probably not going to have a ton of anything from this game anyway when you inevitably have to make those swaps at 8:30. And I don't know, with Golden State and Phoenix at the 10 o'clock spots, you'll be able to find something to get to. On the Utah side, no Lauri Markkanen for this one. Colin Sexton is back. That seemed like a really weird thing to do for the final week of the season, but whatever. 15% ownership coming into Kelly Olynyk at 6,500. I would also be remiss to not mention that Walker Kessler done for the rest of the year. He is in the concussion protocol, so they are putting him on ice. How do you feel about that 15% ownership coming into Kelly Olynyk, and do you want to do anything else with Utah?
15% seems high. I get it, though, just because he is a reasonably priced power forward, and we don't have a lot of forward options in that range. But it does seem a little high. I don't really have interest in anything else. Prices have adjusted. You do have Colin Sexton back to take some minutes away from guys. So, yeah, if you get to some Olynyk, fine, but I do think he's going a little bit over-owned. And outside of that, I don't really see anything.
Yeah, I have nothing else here to add for Utah. I'm a little surprised that Kelly Olynyk is even getting to 15% ownership for this one, but to me, he's just sort of appropriately priced. Is he a crazy play at 6,500 that he should be getting 15% ownership?
Yeah, I think he's fine, but 15% seems weird.
Yeah, I don't is he all that different than Draymond, who's getting 10%? To me, no. You get Wendell Carter, Franz Wagner, Jabari Smith. There's just a sea of other dudes that look comparable. It's not I don't expect Kelly Olynyk to go out there and play 36 minutes because they're shorthanded or something. So I don't know. Don't see it. We go to OKC, 8-point dogs in Golden State, 242 total for this one. 10K SGA at the top. If you're going to anybody for this team, it's SGA, Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey. I don't think that you're really going to all that much from Oklahoma City, but SGA would be the guy. We're not exactly lacking on 10K-ish options today. What are you doing here with the Thunder?
Yeah, SGA is just another one where, if he's in a lineup, cool. I think I'd rather go to Morant, but yeah, I think I'd rather go to Morant between the two, but they're very, very similar plays. I don't see anything else from OKC.
No, neither do I. I would like to add more here, but I don't have it. I mean, if Shea keeps playing 37 minutes a night, that's very interesting to me. God, I'm so ridiculously excited for Oklahoma City next year. I hope Chet's just fully healthy to start it off. It's going to be fun, man.
Fun. They are going to be good.
I want them to somehow sneak into getting Wemby.
I mean, I want the Wizards to somehow fall into that.
You don't deserve that shit. Oklahoma right now, Oklahoma City would have a 2% chance at the number 1 pick and a 9% chance to jump into the top 4. Sign me up for whatever I got to do to get that. It's more fun that way. I mean, obviously now the way that it's looking, get me Wemby to Dallas, but I don't know. The draft lottery is going to be quite the show. I'm gonna have to go live for that. All right. Ricky Root, I don't follow women's hoops, nor should you. Golden State on the opposite side, 22% ownership coming to Dante DiVincenzo at 4,100, point guard, small forward. 10% coming into Dre and Clay. Nothing really coming into Steph. Let's start with this Dante DiVincenzo ownership. I mean, yes, he played 31 minutes on Sunday. Are we like projecting him like he's going to do that moving forward? Why is he 22% owned? What am I missing here? Isn't he Jordan Goodwin?
I think it's the position and the salary. Played 20 minutes 2 games ago, 31 last game. 3 games ago against New Orleans, you got 23 minutes. Like, I'm with you. I think it's more likely you're getting like 24 minutes or so from DiVincenzo, but does have a path to playing more minutes. Going a bit over-owned, I think, at 24%, but also it does just open stuff up because of the position he's at.
Yeah, like I understand that he's a good point per dollar play, but I hope you're assuming that he's playing those 30 minutes again, because if this is just your standard issue 24 minutes out of Dante DiVincenzo, that's a big ownership number.
Yeah, it is.
What do you want to do with Clay and Dre at that 10%? I think they look, I mean, I like Clay at 7K and I don't ever like Clay.
Yeah, I like the small forward eligibility on Clay at 7K. Draymond at 6,500 is fine. I'm with you. I think him and Olynyk are more similar than the field is projected to think they are. Kevon Looney moved back into the starting lineup at 5,300. That's another cheap center that you can look to if you can't quite get to that mid-range, but you don't want to play Richards, at his ownership. Looney is a perfectly reasonable pivot there.
Yeah, Andrew Jennison. If they get Wemby, do you think they keep Chet? Yeah, and they do backflips to play those two dudes. They couldn't be happier. They could not be happier. That would be a dream scenario for them because they're going to play them like 24 minutes a game and like really get some, like take their time developing those guys for a year. Oh my God, it would be, they'd be holding hands and crossing the entire court. It'd be ridiculous. They're going to get Poku out there for a 3-man backline of 7'4" crazy dudes. Poku would not fit that. That'd be one of those things, not like the other scenarios. 10-6 for Steph. No way, right?
I think it's really like I'd rather save the money and play SGA or Morant.
All righty. Ready to close this out?
Yep.
This might be an actual football game. 19-point dogs for the San Antonio Spurs in Phoenix, 236 total. Guys, hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. 1,700 people, 226 in the house. No Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Zach Collins, Romeo Langford, Jeremy Sohan, Charles Bassey, or Kem Birch for San Antonio. And no ownership either. I'm just going to open it up to you. Do you see anything from San Antonio that we should be getting to a little bit more than the 8% that K Debates Diop is getting?
Trey Jones is pulling like 18. At least, unless we got an ownership update during the show.
I got it at 6.6.
Okay, we got one 10 minutes ago, so maybe that's what it was. I think Trey Jones. I think Trey Jones. Yeah, so they all came down now from where it was before the show. Trey Jones is at 6%. Mamouklashvili is at 5%. Bates Diop is at 8%. So yeah, like I think that's more in line. I was going to say the 18% on Trey Jones seemed high, but I do think he's a decent value at guard. You're going to have such a emphasis on going to these $7,500 to $8K guards that it's going to give you a different roster construction if maybe like you go to Trey Jones and then you pay up for like a $6,500 or $7K center instead of going to Nick Richards and then paying up for a $7,500 guard. That's a 2v2 that can work, but clearly a difficult matchup. 19-point dogs is massive. Mamouklashvili should give you around 28 minutes. He's 5,800. He's another reasonable center option, but the price tag has finally caught up. Keita Bates-Diop, small forward eligible, 4,600. Probably shouldn't be getting 1/3 the ownership of Dante DiVincenzo. I'll throw that out there, but also can never be overly confident in him either.
I hate this so much. I hate this. This is the late night hammer straight to the face because I don't want to know what you need in this one. It's just
the thing that scares me is how many like minimum salary guys there are in a game that could just be over by halftime.
Yeah. Like what if Dominic Barlow plays 30 minutes again?
Right. Exactly. Like the last game they played, Barlow ended up playing 25 minutes in regulation. Champagne played 30 or 23. Trey Jones played around 28. Blake Wesley only played 16, but like that was a competitive game that went to overtime. If this is just like you get the normal first half rotations and then all the backups end up playing the fourth quarter, like you could very easily just end up with, again, 25, 26 minutes from Barlow at a cheap price tag. Langford was in that game, so you could certainly get more from a $3,600 Wesley. It's just like, I don't think you can really play those guys hoping for that, but it also just wouldn't be surprising at all if at the end of the night, it's like, oh yeah, the guy that won, $100,000 had this random ass play from the Spurs.
And then we go to the Phoenix side of this one. Highest owned guy is 6.8% owned Chris Paul at 7,300. Durant is around 6. Devin Booker is unowned at 9,600. That's at least like interesting to me because why wouldn't it be? But what do we do with the $6,200 DeAndre Ayton, who has less usage than you would want him to have normally?
Yeah, I'm still intrigued by Ayton and Durant in particular. In the 6 games Ayton's played with Durant and Booker, only a 15.7% usage rate. That is creeping up a bit. It was originally like 12.5% through the first couple of games. I expect it to stabilize somewhere around like 18, 19%, somewhere in there. He's still putting up just shy of a fantasy point per minute. And again, I think that will come up. So at a really cheap $6,200 price tag and no ownership against the Spurs, I am interested. I mean, Ayton could just torch this front court for as long as the game's competitive. Similarly with Durant at 8,900 and no ownership, he started their last game, played like 35 minutes. This game probably isn't going to involve Kevin Durant playing until the end.
Yeah.
But if it does, and you're just getting like, or even, with like a few minutes left, like let's just say the Spurs are down by 14 points the entire game, and you get, 33 minutes or something from Kevin Durant at 5% owned and 8,900 against the Spurs. Like, it's not hard to imagine Kevin Durant just torching this team and, beating Brandon Ingram and beating LeBron. It is obviously risky because this is a crazy mismatch, but it's at least somewhat interesting to me.
It's just, it is a disaster, an absolute disaster of a game. Please do not make anything here important. Anything else you want to add before we turn it over to live before lock?
Nope.
Buckle up, everybody. This one's going to be a fun one. They'll be taking you all the way up to 7 and then some tonight. I'm going to go ahead and build some baseball lineups so that I can maintain my sanity for today. We got a couple more days of this throughout the week. Thank you to Bet365 for being the sponsor of this one. Good luck to everybody. Hit the like button while we're waiting for live before lock. We're out of here. Peace.
Yo, it's that time of week again, and we have a lot of people entering or re-entering the Hall of Fame right here on the Stochastic YouTube channel. If you guys are trying to get involved, you want to get a free month of Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value. You want to get inducted into the Hall of Fame right here. All you got to do is download the Stochastic profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins at Stochastic HOF like everybody did today and for this week. Get yourself a free month. Get yourself inducted into the Hall of Fame. We got a lot of good ones today. Let's get straight into it. Starting off with our boy, Peter Hanley. It's been a while, but I can still win. Yeah, dude, Peter went on a mega heater a little while back, but it looks like he's back on top. $100,000 win there, rocking the Stochastic avatar. Glad to see you back up here, man. Absolutely huge win. And how about Jackson Blake? Not sure if this counts, but I just punched the ticket to the FBWC. Thank you to the Stochastic team and all the tools they provide. Best tools in the business. $60,000 right there to the Fantasy Baseball World Championship. Dude wasted no time getting in on that. Congrats, Jackson. And Jacob. Took down my first 5-digit win. Listen to you guys every day and love the content. Boom, $10,000 in the NBA layup. Everything looks beautiful there. Just got to get that Stochastic avatar, man. But this counts. No problem at all. Nice work, Jacob. Kevin Driscoll finally getting around the posting. Didn't feel like playing. Came in late from work, but glad I did. Live before lock plus the lineup generator plus late swap equals the win. 2K. First place in the pick and roll. What do we get? Second out of 53,000 in the fadeaway. Huge stuff, man. I love seeing that. And then Jorge, our boy Jorge, getting a little sneaky here with the Stochastic edit, but that's okay because Jorge has been one of the most supportive people on the channel and in the community for a long time. Turned 75 into 800, getting third place on the Golf DK Mini Max without knowing anything about golf, but knowing how to read the amazing tools by the Stochastic team. I tell you guys all the time, sometimes you don't need to know these sports, just know how to use the tools. Special shout out to Jazz Raz and Eric Lindquist for amazing tips and information provided. Keep this one rolling. We got a lot today. D-Fick, what's better than an end of season bink? Thanks, Ship My Money, Player Q DFS for the great content yesterday. How about that? $1,000, 10K mini max. Love it. Whew. All right, I got to catch my breath here. Schwab's dad, 23 seconds away from chopping first place for 7K. Garbage time Kawhi layup, and then 2 Trey Murphy free throws. Force me in the fourth. ROI still crazy, though. Thanks for the tools. I hope this secures a free month. 50K Saturday NBA shot, $750. $4 in the 750. Massive ROI. And Alamar, second appearance in the Hall of Fame this calendar year. Thanks to the fellas and all the Live Before Lock crew helping us create winning lineups. Forgot my free month last time, but baseball's here. I'll need that Stochastic Hall of Fame. Let's get it. You got it, man. You got it. Free month coming your way. Paul, thanks to the guys at Stochastic. From this past Friday slate, I was able to take second in the quarter, ninth in the $4. Although I wish I had these entries switched over. Regardless, profit's a profit. Thank you, guys. Yeah, dude, $200 in the jukebox is a very nice profit. Michael Diaz, Stochastic, a win is a win. Yeah, it is. Second place in the mini max. Again, you guys crush them with the tools and the shows in the mini max. You'd love to see that. And Luba, thanks, Stochastic, for the assist on that one and another few good scores. Yesterday's NHL slate. Keep up the great content. Another quarter jukebox bink. How about we've got Michael Thomas. Was running late to film my 20 max NBA fadeaway in the FanDuel. Hit up the lineup generator. I tell you guys all the time, half off, less than $4.50 for the first week. Finished third out of 19,000. I'll take that 50, and I wish another free month, but it may be too soon. Well, you could have worse problems. Yes, Laffy, I'm rocking the new logo. Don't want to get in trouble. My man. Shout out to Michael Thomas. And that's the Stochastic Hall of Fame from Patty Boy. $100 in the fadeaway. Got a few more here before we close it out. Bill, the good news hit for 5,000x my buy-in. Unfortunately, it was in the 5-cent buy-in. Wish I had built more of a bankroll, but have to start somewhere. Yeah, man. And that is one way to do it. Thanks for all the info and video, guys. I'll take my free month now. First place in the wiffle ball, $250. It's as big a win as any. And then I am King Sosa, $100. Man, a few words at the Stochastic Hall of Fame. Third place in the wiffle ball. We close it out with the game. Picked up top 3 showing and some decent change in late night jukebox to push a little in the NBA these last few weeks after retooling the approach and getting some mojo before getting Greg and Neil late night games review in the lock vid. Congrats to everybody. Welcome to the Hall of Fame. You've now been inducted. Download the avatar. Rock it wherever it is you play. Tweet your wins as Stochastic HOF and pick up your free month, the Stochastic Plus Platinum.
What is going on, guys? We had one day off from the NBA grind, and now we're right back to it. Monday, no NBA games. They didn't want to compete with that terrible college basketball final tournament game. So no games yesterday, which means we have 13 games today and just all the players in the world on the injury report, as we could come to expect from the NBA at this point of the season. The players who are currently listed as questionable that we're keeping an eye on: Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, Jaylen Brown, Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Delon Wright, Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Knox, some players that could be pretty pivotal in terms of this slate. Now, I included Kevin Knox there because the Trailblazers are so thin that he's actually played a pretty big role for them. So we're going to need to keep an eye on those individual players. They're ones who are going to shape the slate in a pretty substantial way. As you guys come in, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Bet365 who are sponsoring our show today. Neil, how are you doing? Did you enjoy your day off from the NBA streets?
I did. It was a nice little break. As I was saying earlier, tonight is probably the night I should be taking NBA off because I've got trivia immediately after this, and they make you put your phone away. So I'm not going to be able to make adjustments necessarily every time I need to, and that is a problem. But yeah, no, happy to be back to NBA as well. You know, it was nice having a day off, but it's kind of fun doing NBA shows too.
Yeah, so at this point in the season, I enjoy doing the shows a lot more than sitting here and doing all the late swap and everything. And even I look at this slate, I'm like, another one of these with everybody listed as questionable. And then I never consider, though, that not playing is an option. It's like, no, we got to do it. We got to grind it out. We got to get all the dumb rewards on DraftKings that are worth minimal amounts of money to get those crowns there. We grind for it all year. And we did just get some news that came in, by the way. Dennis Smith Jr. ruled out. Mark Williams ruled out. And it's funny because I look at my current lineups and I look at some of the players I'm getting to, and you wouldn't think it with all the key players that are on the injury report. I think the most important news for the entire slate in terms of how my exposure will change is Delon Wright being questionable. Do you kind of feel the same way looking at your lineups?
Absolutely. Yeah. If Delon Wright is in, he's going to look like a great play. And if he's out, we're just going to get Jordan Goodwin's going to look even better. A lot of guys, Jordan Goodwin, we're going to see Kendrick Nunn is going to look better for Washington. Just it's going to change the slate in kind of a big way if Delon Wright is ruled out, which at this point, are you kind of expecting? I mean, it was a midday downgrade. Seems kind of likely.
Yeah, I would say probably more likely than not. He's dealing with an illness. And what's the point right now? I'm going to pull up really quick where the Wizards are in the standings. And the other thing to consider, too, is they've already ruled out so many other players at this point in the season for extended periods of time. You know, Bradley Beal is out. He's not expected to return. Kyle Kuzma's out. He's not expected to return. I know Porzingis, they've just been listing him out on a day-to-day basis and haven't given a long-term prognosis. It's hard for me to think that he's going to return to play. So Delon Wright, he's clearly not the level of player of those guys, not as important to the future of the team, but he's questionable. Like, why even play? If he's 99%, why even play him at this point? So exactly. I'm with you. I think he's probably a little bit more likely to sit than play. And also, if we look at the standings right now, the Wizards were officially eliminated from the playoffs. I believe it was yesterday, which I think also should have some sort of some kind of weight on whether they consider playing Wright or not. So I'm with you. I think he's probably a little more likely to sit than play. But the good thing here is the game starts right at lock, right? This is a 7 p.m. Eastern time start time. So I assume that we're probably going to get this news in the next like 10, 15 minutes or so. And then we're really going to be able to start digging in and try to find some of the best value. Because I think Washington is going to be a team that we cannot avoid. I know that I generally on these slates where it's big games, there's a lot of players on the injury report, I'll often forego the early games. I have a feeling Delon Wright's going to get ruled out in like 10, 15 minutes, and it's going to be unavoidable to get some of that Washington value.
Yeah, I think that seems like the likeliest scenario here. It's obviously not the best matchup against Milwaukee, but when you're playing that many minutes and at these price tags, I don't really think it matters all that much.
Yeah, so we'll be getting into some of the news as it starts to break. And also, Neil and I are going to be sticking around for 30 minutes post-lock, as we normally do. And this is going to be an important one to stick around for, especially, any of these games over the final week or so. What day is the final day of the NBA regular season? What do we got?
I do not know.
I think it's like Sunday. Yeah, well, there's only about a week so left of regular season games here, and then we're going to be moving into the playoffs. So yeah, this is just a very important time to be sticking around for some of our post-lock show and just checking to see what ends up happening with players who are ruled in, ruled out, starting lineups, all that good stuff. But let's start off this by answering some of your guys' questions. We got a super chat from Hannah Banana. If anybody is in YouTube chat or if anybody's in our Discord chat and you want to ask me a question, at me, we'll hit on those as well. But starting, Hannah Banana wants to know, DK tiers, please. And then she says, let's fucking go. And then a bunch of emojis afterwards. So DK tiers, I am assuming that Nikola Jokic is not played today. As a result of that, I have Giannis in tier 1. Jokic would be really interesting if he goes, but just the way that we've seen the Denver Nuggets manage him, I think it's just safer to assume he's not going to play in any of these games. Then you could adjust if something ends up changing. But I've been removing Jokic from my player pool. Tier 2 for me is a fairly tight one, but I do go with Steph Curry above everybody else. Tier 3, I have Ja Morant. Tier 4, Kevin Durant. Tier 5, Pascal Siakam. Tier 6, Fred VanVleet. So, Hannah, I hope that helps you build out your tiers lineups there. And if anybody's any questions about tiers, any follow-ups, hit me up about that as well. But I think pretty straightforward as long as Jokic is ruled out there. But let's also start to get into some of the players that we know do have value that are existing, Neil. And then I think we could handle some of the other news as it breaks. But I want to start with the Atlanta Hawks because this is a team with Trae Young out and DeAndre Hunter out. It's a team that not only has value, but I think we know what the value is going to be, right? The Wizards are a little hard to really talk about until we get that update on Delon Wright in the starting lineup. I'm getting to a bunch of exposure to the Hawks right now. Do you see this as a team we really want to be playing, considering the players who are out, despite all the ownership going there?
Yeah, I mean, DeJounte Murray at 7,600, that's just a really interesting price tag for DeJounte Murray, already too low. And then with Trae Young out, he's the alpha here. I mean, he would be, if we knew that Trae Young was going to be out, even in this matchup, I would expect DeJounte Murray to be like 9,400, somewhere around there, I think. So 7,600, this price tag just way too low for DeJounte Murray, especially with it's too low, I think, even if Trae Young were in the game. I mean, I guess it's close to fair if Trae's in, but with Trae out, it's definitely just far too low price tag. Looks like a great value. I'm definitely going to be getting to a good amount of DeJounte.
You know who's got to be in all his glory right now? Jordan, because your mic sounds fantastic right now. I'm sure Jordan's taking note of this. Yeah. Very, very crisp. So before the show started, we had Jordan tinkering around with Neil's mic. He went all the way out to Minnesota, flew out there, adjusted Neil's mic settings, and then went back to Los Angeles just to make sure Neil would sound as good as possible. And yeah, Jordan, I have to tell you, this is some of your finest work. I think Neil sounds as good as he's ever sound.
He was really gentle with the mic as he was setting it up for me.
Yeah, it was very, very good work. But it was very weird that he kept asking you to put it closer in your mouth, and he was asking you to put it in your mouth.
A little bit awkward for me, but yeah, after I did put it in my mouth, for a good couple of minutes, he seemed satisfied.
Yeah, it was very weird to me that he kept insisting. I was like, guys, I'm here as well. And he's like, yeah, shut up. But yeah, good job, Jordan. That mic sounds really, really good now. And just to back up what you were saying about DeJounte Murray, Neil, we've seen him this year, a good amount of minutes, over 600 minutes with Trae Young and DeAndre Hunter off the court, scoring right about 45 fantasy points per 36 minutes for DraftKings. That ends up being about 43.5 for FanDuel per 36 minutes. I agree with you. Too cheap. He's one of the best overall plays on the slate. I like him for tournaments. I like him for cash games. I would consider him a must play right now, but for tournaments, also really, really strong option. We currently have him projected for not really an insane amount of ownership either. He's the fourth most popular on the slate on DraftKings, but it's not anything asinine in terms of an ownership projection. And then actually, if you look over at FanDuel, we've got DeJounte Murray projected for just 10% ownership, where he's more expensive at $8,800. I don't mind paying up for him even at $8,800. But on DraftKings, where he is currently 26% owned, is that a number that you think you'll find yourself at the field, overweight or underweight to a popular DeJounte Murray?
I think I'll be above the field on DeJounte Murray. It's just, I mean, it's a fair ownership number. I'm not going to I don't think I'm going to be locking him in, but I think I'm going to be overweight to the field on 26%. I'm curious what I'm pulling up the boom bust. Yeah, I mean, he actually, so in the boom bust, 26% projected ownership, 50% chance of booming, and then a 23% chance of optimality. So looks like he's, relative to his optimal odds, a little bit over-owned, but, you don't really need the optimal lineup, and he does have a 50% chance of booming. So I imagine I'm going to be overweight to the field on DeJounte Murray. I think he's relatively safe. I don't think it's likely that he puts up a stinker. I think it's more likely that he puts up a game that you need to have than a game that really hurts you.
And now let's talk about the other players on the Hawks. I'm on the same page with you as far as DeJounte Murray go. Another guy who's really popular, and I was fairly surprised the other day where I thought that Saddiq Bey, when he first moved into the starting lineup for the Hawks, I thought that he was somebody who just looked like a really good value play, and nobody really played him. Now we've got a scenario where we've got Saddiq Bey once again looking at an expanded role in the absence of Trae Young, and he's much more popular now. He's projected for 36% ownership on DraftKings. We've got Saddiq Bey on FanDuel, more reasonably projected for 16% ownership because his price point is higher at $5,600. Saddiq Bey, even more popular than DeJounte Murray on the cheap side. I would consider him one of the, if not the top value plays on the slate right now. Are you liking Saddiq Bey as much as the field likes Saddiq Bey?
I suspect I'm going to be underweight to the field on Saddiq Bey, not by a ton, but by a little bit. He's projected for 36% ownership. To me, that's just a little bit high. Now that he's up at 4,800, he's got a 33% chance of booming, 22% chance of being optimal in our sims. So it looks a little bit overowned by any metric in the boom bust tool. At that price tag, I don't think that he's a player that is assured to have a good game. So I think I'm going to be a little bit under the field on Saddiq Bey. Obviously a great play, great value play, but when he's up at 36% ownership and 4,800, he's not to me, he's not the same level of smash play that DeJounte Murray is.
And now let's talk about the other players on the team, and then we'll get back to some of the questions that are outstanding right now. Outside of Saddiq Bey and DeJounte Murray, it's not like we have anybody on this team that's projected to be crazy popular. In fact, I mean, it's a big slate. The ownership in general is fairly spread out, other than guys like Delon Wright and Jordan Goodwin currently projected for a ton of ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Nick Richards is projected for about 50% ownership. We got Goodwin at 39%, Wright at 34%. Outside of outside of Murray and Bay, who are the other players on the Hawks that you think are worth playing in large field tournaments?
I don't know how much I really want to play Jalen Johnson. We're only projecting him for about 19 minutes and 17 fantasy points. He looks right now like he's a pretty good value, but I think I'd rather wait to see what other value opens up. And that game isn't right at lock. It's an hour after lock, so we don't really need to make that decision now. But I don't imagine that I would get to a ton of Jalen Johnson right now, even though he looks like a fine value play, just not getting enough minutes on a slate this size with so many moving parts and potential value opening up. I don't really think I'm going to get to a ton of Jalen Johnson. Bogdan Bogdanovic looks earlier in the day, at least, was our top leverage play on the entire slate. Let me see if that's still true. He's looking like he's not going to get a ton of ownership. Where is he? All right. He's no longer our top leverage play on the slate like he was earlier. The ownership must have come up. I think that he's in play, though, regardless of whether he starts. He's probably going to play enough minutes, get good usage with no Trae Young there. So I do have some interest in Bogdan Bogdanovic. John Collins, I think, is playable. I don't know who else is currently a priority, though, from the Hawks here. It's primarily DeJounte Murray for me. A little bit of interest in, I have interest in Saddiq Bey, a little bit in Jalen Johnson, John Collins, Bogdan Bogdanovic. You could play Capella at 5% ownership. Looks like a fine play. Yeah, I don't know that I really want to get to like AJ Griffin in 23 minutes. Not a priority for me. Yeah, I think that's just it for me. How about you?
So primarily it's going to be DeJounte Murray and Saddiq Bey. I do think that Bogdanovic is somebody that's going a little bit overlooked by the field, especially considering the ownership on Saddiq Bey. Because, what's the scenario where Saddiq Bey fails? One of them to me is just Bogdanovic comes off the bench, plays really well, and cuts into the playing time of Saddiq Bey. So I do expect Saddiq Bey to start. I do think that he is the higher floor player. But I do think that Bogdanovic is a comparable ceiling, and I think he serves as decent leverage there. So for tournaments, I like Bogdanovic. For cash game purposes, it is DeJounte Murray and Saddiq Bey, though, and nobody else really a priority. I've got a couple of shares of Jalen Johnson. I'm probably going to take those out, though, prior to lock, because I just think there's going to be better plays that open up in terms of value later on in the day. So he's in there right now. But like I said, I do expect that I'll be getting to better players later on. I don't want him taking up a roster spot in some of the earlier games. So we've got the Atlanta game, starts at 8:00. And by then I assume we're going to get the Wizards news in short order and some others. So Jalen Johnson in right now, but I would be fairly surprised if I have him by the time that game actually locks. Let's get to some of your guys' questions right now, starting with Ben Anthony. Ben Anthony, I'm late. I want value. I need value. Hit me with it. All right. Who are the overall best? So let's do this a couple way, Neil. Who would you consider to be, say, 3 of the best points per dollar plays on DraftKings? I'll do it for FanDuel. He didn't leave the site. So you can do it for DraftKings. I will do it for FanDuel. And then we'll find, let's say, a lower owned tournament play that isn't just like one of the best projected guys. But let's handle it that way. So you starting with DraftKings, who are the 3 best points per dollar plays on DK?
Yeah, so Jordan Goodwin, I think, is going to look good regardless of DeLone Wright status. Like, even if DeLone Wright is in, Jordan Goodwin is going to be a really strong play. He's going to be much, even stronger if DeLone Wright is out. So I'd say Jordan Goodwin, currently the top value play on the entire slate. I do have interest in both of the Charlotte bigs, Nick Richards and Kai Jones. We're projecting both for pretty substantial minutes here. 28 minutes for Nick Richards, 29.5 for Kai Jones. Jones is just 4,000. So if you mean value from the lowest dollar perspective as opposed to point per dollar, it would be Kai Jones there, but also Nick Richards very much in play. And then as far as other value plays, we talked about Saddiq Bey is 4,800. Very strong value play there. DeJounte Murray, if you want to spend up a little bit and still get a really good point per dollar play, DeJounte Murray at 7,600, very strong.
Yeah, so looking at FanDuel and some of my exposures, the players I got to the most here as my computer, for some reason, this happens to me all the time. I'll be about to answer a question, I have everything in front of me, and then my tab just closes. But luckily, I do remember off the top of my head some of the ones that I had the most exposure to. Jordan Goodwin being number 1, and just for all the reasons you had laid out before when it comes to him on DraftKings, the same on FanDuel. Like, he already projects really well at the moment. And then you have the possibility that DeLone Wright is going to get ruled out, I assume, very shortly. That game starts in, I just got an alert on my phone. Is that what it is? Let's see, what did I get? It was, it's Dylan Brooks is unlikely to play today, but it is not the update that we were looking for on DeLone Wright. But So Jordan Goodwin, I think, like you said, he already looks good now. And then you do get a scenario where if he is not going to play Delon Wright,
we just got the news. No Delon Wright.
There we go. All right. So even more so. Delon Wright illness ruled out. So we were kind of anticipating that was going to happen. I spoke it into existence. I was like,
yes,
here
it
comes.
Did. Good job. Good job, Greg.
And then it happens. It's one of the few powers I have. I try to use it wisely. So Delon Wright being out now, we don't have to do the what if here. Jordan Goodwin just pretty easily becomes one of the best values on the entire, probably the best value on the entire slate.
Yep. Agreed.
Beyond him, Nick Richards on FanDuel, I think looks really good. And who would I go next? There's so many good ones today. Do I go with our guy Mommy? Sandro Mamukavalishvili? There's so many players who are out for the Spurs. Even if this game is blowout, which I think is fairly likely, he's still pretty likely to play garbage time. So I'll say Mamukavalishvili at $5,600. If we're going a little bit more contrarian, let's see. Is there a contrarian option that I really like for FanDuel? Points per dollar. So we're going to look for somebody who's cheap. Oh, by the way, I should add this as well. Johnny Davis is going to be an exceptional value play on FanDuel now at $4,200. So Johnny Davis, Jordan Goodwin, for sure. And also Davis's ownership is about to go absolutely through the moon. Lower owned value play that I like getting to. I'm going to say Kai Jones, particularly as a pivot off of Nick Richards. Right now, we have Kai Jones projecting for 9% ownership and Nick Richards at 49%. Nick Richards is a very, very good points per dollar play. I was just talking about him before, but the idea that you could get Kai Jones for 1/5 of the ownership and still has all that opportunity with the Hornets being shorthanded in the front court, I like him as a pivot. So I'll go with Kai Jones for that purpose. But let's talk about the situation with the Wizards now, because we now officially know that there's going to be no Delon Wright in the lineup for Washington. With that in mind, what are we looking at this team for value, Neil? Like, I know we are going to like Jordan Goodwin more. I think Johnny Davis, maybe he starts first round pick and probably plays garbage time as well. The blowout seems like almost inevitability in this game. If the Bucks are going to play their guys regular minutes, the Bucks were 14-point favorites, probably gonna be like 15, 16 when the dust settles. But for you, what do you want to look at for the Washington Wizards with this team just massively shorthanded?
Yeah, so Jordan Goodwin, I think, is pretty close to a lock here. Assuming he gets to start, I think he's a very, very strong play. Obviously, Kendrick Nunn, I think, is going to be extremely playable at this point. I'll be curious to see what kind of minutes we give him, what our projection will be for Kendrick Nunn. It's obviously a situation that's going to be hard to predict here, but he's only 3,400. If we get Kendrick Nunn in there for 24 minutes or so, we've got him projected today for over a fantasy point per minute. On the season, he's a 0.83 fantasy point per minute guy, but this is obviously different circumstances with all the starters out, should pick up additional usage. So Kendrick Nunn going to look really strong at 3,400. I would assume. I don't know exactly how many minutes we're going to give him, but I imagine Nunn picks up some minutes. As you mentioned, Johnny Davis, we already had him projected for 28 minutes, 22 fantasy points. Now we're probably going to project him for a few more, probably get him up to a projection of, I don't know, maybe 25 fantasy points or so at 4,200, which is a strong enough play. Maybe not as strong as FanDuel, but I think that he is going to be playable. I would guess, we get little bumps to Daniel Gafford, maybe. I don't know. Do you think we see any kind of bump for Daniel Gafford? We're just, how many guys do they have now in Washington?
So here's the thing that's tricky for me, because I'm just looking at who they have active. They do have a bunch of shitty players that, if you tell me you've heard of these guys, you're lying, right? So they still, Quentin Jackson, who former UFC light heavyweight champion, apparently he plays in the NBA now. So he is available. They have Jay Huff available. They have Xavier Cooks available as well. So they have these guys at the end of the bench. Here's my concern with guys like Daniel Gafford, maybe Corey Kispert less so. But if the game ends up being one-sided, I don't think that we'd see Gafford playing in garbage time. I think that we would probably see them going to some of these guys like Jay Huff, for instance, who hasn't really gotten any run this year. I think they just give him playing time to see what he has. And it makes it really hard for me to look at a guy like Daniel Gafford. Like a Kispert, I guess I'll be okay with him, though he's priced up. But really the primary options for me that I'm going to want to get to, Jordan Goodwin, Johnny Davis, and then that's probably it as far as priorities, though. I don't really think there's anybody else I'm going to get much of.
Yeah, I mean, As far as priorities go, I would agree with you. Like you can get to, if you want to play a little bit of Anthony Gill at relatively low ownership, that's fine. He's not a great point per dollar guy. I saw people talking about him earlier. He's like, he needs a lot of minutes to really pay off. Of course, he should pick up extra usage again with, all the starters out. Maybe Anthony Gill picks up a little bit of usage here, but he's still, even at 3,300, not like a really, really strong play just because he's not a great point per dollar guy. Kendrick Nunn, I think I would have more interest in here just because all the guards are out. You'd expect Kendrick Nunn to pick up some more minutes here. So I'd say Kendrick Nunn is probably third in line for me after Jordan Goodwin and Johnny Davis.
And now let's move over to the Memphis Grizzlies because the news that we got there, Dillon Brooks, he was not somebody who I was expecting to sit out the game, but I mean, I guess we do have to consider this a game for Memphis that does not really matter. They're playing against the Portland Trailblazers, so the game only matters because they're trying to lose at this point in the season. Here's the issue I have as I'm looking through Memphis. This is another spot too where we really try our best to not predict blowouts, but the Grizzlies are 18-point favorites at home against the Portland Trailblazers. I know that your Minnesota Timberwolves
You're giving me PTSD right now. Yeah.
I know that they just lost to them. This is a team that is actively trying to lose games, though. And I don't think this is a game where Memphis is going to have to play their core guys a lot of minutes. So other than just taking Dillon Brooks out of the player pool, I don't think there's anybody from Memphis all of a sudden that's like, oh, I need to get to this guy that looks way different than they did, 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not, it doesn't become a smash spot for anybody. It probably gives a slight bump to Ja, maybe if you think there's a chance that it stays close and Memphis wants to win it, if Ja does get minutes against this Portland team, he should go absolutely off at low ownership. So I'll say that Ja's sort of interesting just because if he does get minutes against this team, he should put up a lot of fantasy points. But I'm with you. I don't think that there's anybody who becomes a big priority from Portland with Dillon Brooks out.
Yeah. So the other thing too is I already had some exposure to Ja Morant, not a ton, but he was in my player pool. And I kind of think it's going to be the same situation, right? I had some of Morant before. I'm still going to have some of Morant, but not anything that's going to really substantially change. We've got Luke Kennard. Does he look better? Sure, but he's fairly expensive. He is $5,300 on DraftKings. The price point on Kennard on FanDuel. Let's see, what is Kennard on FanDuel? Kennard is $5,100. Honestly, where we have so much value, it's a better spot for him, but I don't think it's anything I really need to get to. And that's really how I view a lot of these guys from Memphis. So yeah, you can make a case that maybe Ja Morant should pick up a little bit of extra usage. The ball should be in his hands a little bit more because Dillon Brooks insists on shooting way more than he should. But still, somebody, Ja Morant, I was getting a little bit of exposure to him before. I still will, and nothing really changes there. Anything else you want to add from Memphis? If not, Gary Trent officially listed out now. If not, then we can answer some of the super chats that we've said here.
Let's do that. Let's answer some super chats.
Okay, the next one is from Shikari Mfood. Shikari wants to know DK position by position. Who are you getting to the most? Good timing because I just updated my lineups for the news that we have on the Washington Wizards. So looking at point guards, DeJounte Murray and Jordan. Do you have any lineups built yet, Neil? Or not?
No, I'll start building now though.
Okay, all good.
We did just get projection updates for the news that DeLon Wright is out. DeLon Wright is out. Sorry guys, that DeLon Wright is out. So I will. I'll refresh. Once we have that, I'll start running some lineups.
Yeah, it's cool. I've got lineups. I just updated everything for Washington players being out anyway, so I could run through this. Point guard, I have the most exposure to DeJounte Murray and Jordan Goodwin. Shooting guard, DeJounte Murray, Jordan Goodwin, Johnny Davis. I don't know if we have updated ownership yet. I'm going to refresh it.
We did just get Jaylen Brown out too, by the way. Yep,
Jaylen Brown just ruled out. So, by the way, the answer to this question now is going to not matter because Jaylen Brown being out is going to supersede a lot of this. But I'll just, for the sake of finishing this, I'm going to continue to answer this question that we have, but I had at shooting guard, DeJounte Murray, Jordan Goodwin, Johnny Davis. Like I said, there's no amount of ownership I think that's going to get me off of Jordan Goodwin at this point. I know he's going to be popular. Not going to matter though. Small forward for me, Saddiq Bey and Klay Thompson, actually. Power forward, also Saddiq Bey. I'm getting to a good amount of Giannis as a pay-up option. There's certainly some concerns about that game becoming a blowout with Milwaukee taking on the Wizards. But we have so much value now. It's not that hard to spend up for the high-end guys. And I think Giannis is the player who should project for the most fantasy points on the slate. So him, power forward, center, I like getting to him. And then actually Jakob Poeltl, I got to a good amount at center, as well as Pascal Siakam. So those were my most rostered players prior to Jaylen Brown being ruled out. But Now let's talk about Jaylen Brown. And the other thing too is this game has some significance, right? It's a game between the Boston Celtics and the Philadelphia 76ers. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, we've got the Sixers are 3 games behind the Celtics. So it's not likely, but there is a scenario where the Celtics lose the rest of their games, the 76ers win the rest of their games, and the 76ers would pass the Celtics in the standings. So there is still reason for both these teams to be playing their core guys as many minutes as they can handle in this spot. And with Jaylen Brown out, I do think this is going to make some of the players on Boston certainly look more interesting, which, while it is not a surprise to anybody who's watching, because I know all of us are going to know at this point, especially if you guys are still playing NBA DFS at this point of the year, you're probably saying, yeah, Greg, we know other guys on Boston look better with Jaylen Brown out. But I do think it's something that's also more actionable with him being out than, say, like Dylan Brooks being out for Memphis, because that game largely doesn't matter for them.
Yep.
So I have the numbers right here with Jaylen Brown off the court. We see a 35.5% usage rate for the year for Jason Tatum. There's also been a little bit of increased usage for guys like Derek White and for Malcolm Brogdon. But are these players going to project well enough now that they're going to make it into your lineups, Neil, considering the amount of value and the amount of options we have?
Yeah, I would imagine that they will. I kind of want to wait and see what the updated projections look like. But yeah, I think, Jason Tatum going to look that much better, probably going to make it into some of my lineups. He was already obviously very playable at 10,400, but I think this just makes him look even better with Jaylen Brown out. So yeah, I would imagine I get to some Tatum, probably some Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, some of these other secondary pieces from Boston as well. Kind of want to see what the updates look like. We also got the news that Jokic is now probable, which is interesting.
So we just got a ton of news. So we've got Jokic is now probable. This is going to change the slate. And also, I'm going to add this. Before we got the tiers question, and I had said that my number one favorite pay up option was Giannis because I assumed Jokic wasn't going to play. It is now Jokic. It would be my preferred option for tier 1. We also got Thibault ruled out, Cam Reddish ruled out, Trendon Watford ruled out, Kevin Knox ruled out. With Jokic being in, how is he somebody you're going to want to play in tournaments now?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're playing Houston, which is, you obviously have to worry a little bit about the blowout there in Houston, but still, I think Jokic is probably going to go a little bit under-owned because he's had the Q tag all day, and it is a nice spot against Houston, not a great defense. So I think Jokic a very strong play now on DraftKings.
Sorry, I thought you were going to talk a little longer. Like this is a perfect time for me to take a sip of Eric's tears. But yeah, so large field tournaments, I agree. I still wouldn't play Jokic in cash games. I have some concerns about how many minutes. They've been so cautious with him over the last week. I do have some questions about, is he really going to go out and play a full allotment of minutes? Like, I don't think he goes and plays 24, but I do wonder if his upper bound limit of playing time is limited in some sense. So I wouldn't be playing him in any kind of cash game scenario. But for tournaments, he's Nikola Jokic. There's a lot of value on the slate. I definitely think we can make a case for him. But if you had to pick one player to pay up for, now that we've got the Jokic news, if you could only pay up for one player on the slate, Neil, who do you think that player would be for yourself?
I mean, unless you count DeJounte Murray, which I don't think you should count as a pay up option, it's probably Jokic for me. I think that Jokic is going to be, he's the highest projected player on the slate, and he's going to be a low one. We're projecting for 5% ownership. It probably comes up a little bit now that we have the news that he's officially in before lock. But I still think Jokic is going to be relatively low owned here. People are going to be afraid of the blowout. So it's probably Jokic for me. How about you?
I think it's going to end up being Giannis for me, just because he has the power forward eligibility as well. The one thing that makes Jokic just a little bit tricky is that he only has that center eligibility. I'm about to rerun lineups. And by the way, I'm going to actually, I take it back. My answer is going to be Jason Tatum. With Jaylen Brown, I think Tatum's going to be the player I end up getting to the most as I'm updating this. Because I have Tatum for 55 fantasy points now. And I imagine that's going to be a pretty big, I imagine it's going to be a pretty big difference.
Yeah, please don't spread fake news in chat. We have somebody saying Jokic is doubtful. He's not doubtful. He was just upgraded to probable for tonight.
Is it the same guy from the other day who came in and was like, it was said that Jokic was playing? Remember that guy?
I don't think I do remember that guy.
Yeah. And then he kicked him out. Then he messaged me on Twitter to apologize. But
yeah. Now I remember.
Yeah. Who said, let's see, who was it that said?
Different guy. This is a different guy.
Where is it? Yeah, whoever said Jokic is out, I can't find it. Don't say Jokic is out. He's probable. So but fairly likely that he's going to end up playing. And then hopefully we'll get a little bit of news on any kind of minutes restriction that he might have. I also want to refresh our ownership projections to see if that has been updated yet. Probably not. Here's the problem. As players get ruled out, we get the projection update, and then immediately another player gets ruled out, and then everything kind of goes into flux.
Yeah.
So we are going to circle back on that in a second. Starting lineup for the Hornets, by the way, Maladon, McGowan's, McCallum, JT Thor, and Nick Richards. Let's answer the other super chats that we have outstanding, and then we'll come back and look at the projections and see if we have everything updated for all of the news, and there's a lot of it. Big Money NJ, $100 super chat. Thank you. We really do appreciate it. Post NCAA, man, my pockets are fat. Thank you for the great content. Bring on the playoffs. Thank you for the super chat, Big Money NJ. We appreciate you. And by the way, if anybody wants to know the easiest way to make money right now, the absolute easiest way, sign up at Bet365 using the offer we have available right now. So this is only available in a few states, but if you guys live in New Jersey, if you guys live in Colorado, if you live in Virginia, Ohio, you sign up over at Bet365. You make a deposit, you wager $1, and you're going to get $10. Sorry, not $10. You make a $10 deposit, you wager $1, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. It is that easy. That's all you have to do. So if you haven't signed up at Bet365, use the link that we have below. But if you or anybody you know has a gambling problem, do call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER, because that is what they tell me to say. So let's move on with the rest of the super chats that we have sitting here. I'm going to refresh the ownership, see if that's updated. Not quite yet. Next question here is from Jay the Guru. DK tiers, which two players do you like the most in each tier? So let's get back to tiers, and a little bit different from before just because Jokic has officially been ruled probable as opposed to questionable. But I'm going to say Jokic, my favorite option in tier 1. Giannis, my second favorite option. Tier 2, Steph Curry and Anthony Davis. Tier 3, Ja Morant and James Harden. Tier 4, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Tier 5, Pascal Siakam and Jimmy Butler. And then tier 6, Fred VanVleet and DeMar DeRozan. So hopefully that helps you. A little bit more options there for you there, Jay the Guru. The next super chat is from PSSA31. Thank you, Greg, for the Toshiba home run advice. Last night, who was your pick to get a home run tonight? So I did place a bet on I posted it on Twitter. Let me find which one I posted on Twitter. There wasn't as much value for home runs today. I bet Jake Fraley at plus 550 to homer on DK. But this wasn't the same as last night. There was a bunch of ones that were projecting well for us in BetPro. We had a lot of strikeout props that project well, a lot of a lot of total bases props. Not quite as many home runs, but I did bet Jake Fraley at plus 550 to homer. Next one is Jonathan Bennett. What teams are playing for something today? Interesting. So let's see who's actually playing for something. Toronto is. Miami is. Milwaukee sort of is. The Nets sort of are. The Sixers and the Celtics are both playing for something. Denver sort of is. You know, some of these also, it's ones where it's like they could change in the standings, but they probably aren't going to. But so that's what I'll say. Denver sort of is. The Bulls and the Hawks both are. That's a pretty important game. The Grizzlies sort of are, but once again, they're at home against the Portland Trailblazers. Neil, have you ever heard of a team that's trying to lose at home to the Blazers?
Never heard of that.
Yeah, it's never happened before. So the Grizzlies sort of are. The Pelicans are. The Kings are. Sort of also. The Jazz and the Lakers are both playing for something. The Jazz kind of on the outs in terms of the play-in race, but not totally eliminated. The Lakers seeding very important for the Lakers right now. OKC is weird because they are playing for something in the standings. I just don't know if they even care to make the play-in game, but they are playing for something. Same with the Warriors. And I mean, the Suns, another one. The Suns are sort of playing for something, but they're 19-point favorites at home against the Spurs. So that runs down the teams that at least standings-wise have something to play for. James Magruder, top plays at each position for the late slate. All right, let me run lineups for the late slate then. By the way, which late slate do you mean, James? The 5-game late slate? The 5-game late swap? Because there's the 5-game slate and the 2-game slate. Which late one? There's multiple late slates. That isn't nearly impossible to say. Try to say late slate 5 times in a row, Neil.
Late slate, late slate, late slate, late slate, late slate. I think I did it.
I think you messed up a couple.
I think I did it flawlessly.
I don't know. I know I didn't. I know I fucked it up, but you did better than me at the very least. I set the bar very low, so you definitely surpassed that. I'm going to assume he means the 10 p.m. Eastern time 2-game slate. So let me just run lineups for that really quick and see who ends up popping up most often in that one. If you mean the 5-game slate, then apologies. But for the 2-game slate, this is who I got the most exposure to as I just ran lineups. Point guard was SGA. Shooting guard, Klay Thompson. Small forward, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant. Power forward, Draymond Green and Dominic Barlow. And then center was DeAndre Ayton. So hopefully that is the slate that you wanted me to answer. Much easier only having to deal with the 2 games and crunching lineups than with the 13-game slate that we have.
Yep.
Corey Shea, is Giannis not that good of a play now? Giannis is definitely a good play still. There's a lot of value. He's not that hard to get up to. And I know that people could be concerned about some of the blowout risk, but at some point we just need fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the really high-end options just look better when you have more and more value coming in. That makes Giannis a better play.
Yeah, I think Giannis is a pretty good option. But like I was saying before, the player that I suspected I was going to get the most of, and I did end up getting the most of when I reran my lineups, is Jason Tatum. Is my most rostered pay up option now. Benjamin Riley, Greg, don't be that guy, pal. Don't be that guy. I don't know which thing I've said that this is in reference to.
Could have been a number of things.
Yeah, I'll try not to be that guy. I'll try. That gets us caught up on those questions. Let's go into Discord and answer questions that everybody has in there. And I'll give one more refresh to the ownership to see if that's in. Starting lineup, by the way, for the Wizards: Goodwin, Davis, Kispert, Anthony Gill, and Daniel Gafford. I don't really have interest in Gill, but Goodwin and Davis starting in the backcourt. Love both of them. Play them in cash games. They're pretty hard to get away from. Looking at Discord, just locks. Haven't looked into anything today. Who are some of your top plays you like for FanDuel GPP? And thanks. All right. So I like a lot of the same players are going to stand out on FanDuel relative to DraftKings as well. Like Jordan Goodwin, great play. Johnny Davis, great play. Nick Richards, I think, is a good center option. I love Kai Jones as a pivot off of him. And then in terms of high-end guys, I think Jason Tatum is the top overall pay-up option, and it's not that hard to get Tatum and Giannis into the same lineups now. So I would say those are my overall favorite plays on FanDuel just locks. Miami High Life. Is it a bad idea to play Kai Jones and Nick Richards in the same DK GPP lineup? If you had to pick one or the other, who would you play? I think it's very unnecessary to play both of them in the same lineup today, particularly if you're just hand building one lineup. I would not have them in the same one. If I had to pick one, I'm getting similar exposure to both. Based on ownership, I would lean towards Kai Jones. How about yourself, Neil?
Yeah, it would probably be Kai Jones for me, just because he is the value option there and getting a little bit. Actually, I think the ownership is pretty high on both of them on DraftKings. Let me take a look real quick. We've got, Kai Jones at 35% ownership, Nick Richards at 27.5. So maybe.
Oh, so it's changed then.
Yeah, so it is. That's tough. That's actually really tough for me. Which one of them I'd rather go with? Because we've got them both in for big. It's probably Kai Jones, just because we've got him. We actually have him in for more minutes than Nick Richards here. So at 4,000, I'd probably just eat the chalk and go with Kai Jones.
It's interesting because before Nick Richards was more popular, if you look at our FanDuel ownership projections, Richards is projected for 4. And by the way, we do have updated ownership projections now. Nick Richards is still 45% owned on FanDuel, but Kai Jones is, where is Kai Jones? Kai Jones is 15% on FanDuel now. So the last update did bump Kai Jones's ownership quite a bit here. DraftKings purposes, I'm actually going to say Nick Richards now that he's lower owned. FanDuel, the answer is Kai Jones because he's lower owned. I think they're pretty similar. I would just go with whoever's lower owned. On FanDuel, that's Kai Jones. On DraftKings, that's Nick Richards. The next question that we have in Discord is none. We've answered all of them, it looks like, unless they aren't showing up for me. If you guys have more questions, hit me up in Discord so we could answer those from any of our customers. And if you guys want to join our Discord, it's one of the perks being a Platinum member that we have for Stochastic. You get access to our Discord channel. You get access to all of our player projections or ownership projections. But also, if you guys want to get in the door just really cheap for baseball, $9, 9 days. Get access to all of our MLB content, projections, ownership, our top stacks tool, the top pitchers tool. You get all of that. $9 for 9 days. Just click on the link below in the description box or at the checkout. Use the promo code PLAYBALL. They'll get you all of our baseball data. 9 days, $9. Have you been able to build out any lineups, Neil?
Good question. And no, I have not. I should do that.
I am exporting some lineups now. I'm going to copy and paste them and put them in. I don't think we're going to get any news. At least I hope not. In the next
12 minutes.
Yeah, at least not that's going to change my lineups for the early spot of games.
Right.
Zeke Naji was just ruled out, by the way, and Robert Williams will not play today, but will play tomorrow. So that is pertinent information as well. Yeah, so let me update these. And then also I want to tell you guys who I ended up getting the most exposure to in my most recent run, just so we're on the same page, because earlier I gave you guys an answer, but not quite as updated as it is now. So point guard, still a lot of DeJounte Murray and Jordan Goodwin. Something added to the mix, though. I have a good amount of Marcus Smart now. Marcus Smart is somebody who I definitely think benefits from the absence of Jaylen Brown, and the field is not really getting to him. He's projected for 0.1% ownership on FanDuel. DraftKings, he's projected for 0.3% ownership. If he's actually going to be that low owned, I mean, that's just somebody who's going way overlooked by the field with Jaylen Brown out. Shooting guard, still DeJounte Murray, Jordan Goodwin, Johnny Davis. I think those are the guys. Small forward, Jason Tatum and Sadiq Bey. Power forward, same guys, Jason Tatum, Sadiq Bey. Center, I have a good amount of Jakob Poeltl. And then I'm split on Nick Richards and Kai Jones also at the center spot. So it's funny the way my ownership of those players work right now. I end up being a little bit overweight to Nick Richards and just a little bit underweight to Kai Jones. So that is how things stand for me now. As for the players we're still waiting for on the injury report, pull this up right now. Here is who is questionable. Not too bad anymore. LeBron is questionable. Karl Anthony Towns is questionable. D'Angelo Russell is questionable. And yeah, nothing else really that's too pressing when it comes to the injury report. So we'll see what ends up happening, but I think things are pretty settled. That was why I feel comfortable updating my lineups right now. Is there anything from the early games here, Neil, outside of Washington, do you feel like you just need to get to? And the early games, by the way, we have Cleveland, Orlando. That's a no for me. Toronto, Charlotte. It's yes on Charlotte. Kai Jones, Nick Richards are players I want to get some exposure to. Milwaukee, yes on Giannis. Washington, we talked about all the value there. Miami, Detroit, I don't really feel like I need to get exposure to either side of that game. So as we're heading into lock, that's where my mindset's at in terms of the players I'm getting exposure to and making sure that I still have myself some flexibility if guys are ruled out later. But how about for you? As you're running some lineups here, is there anything from the early game you feel like you need to have, the early games, those four, you feel you need to get exposure to?
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat as you. I like Washington. There are players that I think you need to have some exposure to in Washington and Charlotte, the other one, particularly the centers, Kai Jones, Nick Richards. And I would not play them together, but I do think that they're both very solid plays. So if you're playing, 20 plus lineups, I would definitely have some exposure to Kai Jones or Nick Richards or both.
Have some exposure to Xavier Cooks. I don't think I want exposure to Xavier Cooks.
I have 50% Jonathan Williams right now. I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, it's really hard because I think there are going to be players who are towards the tail end of Washington's bench that are just going to have to get minutes because the team is so shorthanded. I don't know if we have to put ourselves in a position where we need to guess who those players are going to be, though.
Jonathan Williams is he's on Portland, by the way. I just noted that I've never seen this name before. I heard it on a show earlier, never heard of him before, and I'm just getting to a ton. I don't know that I want that much.
Yeah, I'm talking more so about the early games though, and just the other players where I feel like I need Jordan Goodwin and Johnny Davis, but the other players on Washington, So like I was talking about before, I had exposure to Xavier Cooks. I think it's unnecessary though. Are there any other guys from Washington that you get to outside of the guys that we actually care about in terms of the starters? Davis and outside of Johnny Davis and Jordan Goodwin, are there any Wizards you really want to get to?
All right, let me take a look at what I have right now. I think Kendrick Nunn looks pretty good for Washington. I'd say he's a Wizard player that I'd want to have in some of my lineups at least. Like I don't think he's as big of a priority, but Kendrick Nunn, I think, actually projects better for us than Johnny Davis at a cheaper price. So he actually might be the bigger priority of those guards for Washington. How much am I getting there? I am getting to... Why can't I find how much? Okay. Yeah, I'm getting to a ton of Jordan Goodwin. a little bit of Johnny Davis, and actually a good amount of Kendrick Nunn. On DraftKings in particular, he's 3,400. We're projecting Kendrick Nunn for just under 26 fantasy points at 3,400. I'm probably going to cut back a little. I got 77% running an unencumbered crunch. I'm going to encumber that, try to get to less Kendrick Nunn. I don't want 77%, but he actually projects better for us than Johnny Davis does on DraftKings.
Yeah, I prefer Davis just because he is starting. He's going to have the first crack at minutes. There's also just there's more motivation for the Wizards to give big minutes to Johnny Davis. They used a first-round draft pick on Davis. Everybody's out for this team. To me, it would be a massive mistake if they're like, all right, let's give minutes to Kendrick Nunn over Johnny Davis, who's...
So just to clarify, so we only have Kendrick Nunn in for 24 minutes and Johnny Davis in for 31. It's just a matter of Johnny Davis's fantasy points per minute is so much worse than Kendrick Nunn's that Kendrick Nunn ends up projecting better. But I do think it's hard for me to really want to play players on a slate like this who are limited in their minutes, just because it'd be so hard for Kendrick. He's a strong fantasy point per dollar guy, but like I don't feel like he can really is he going to spike up to 2 fantasy points per minute and absolutely destroy the slate? Probably not. So I think I'm probably with you that I'd rather take a shot on the guy who's going to get bigger minutes, and maybe he gets a little bit more usage. Maybe they let him show out a little bit. So I can see your viewpoint for sure on Johnny Davis being the better play.
Yeah, and by the way, I gave him 38 minutes. I just gave him an asinine amount of minutes.
My God.
I just think that why not just run him into the ground? First round, it was their first round pick. It's the end of the year.
Is he starting? I forget.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So, why not?
We'll see what ends up happening
I think that's a reasonable take, to be honest.
Yeah. So that's, and by the way, as a result, that also means I don't project Kendrick Nunn for as many minutes. Just kind of where my thought process is at here.
Yep.
Super chat here from my Phil Arc. Night slate, DK, Clay, or Jalen Williams. That is Clay Thompson over Jalen Williams for me. Before, when I had the other question from, who was it that asked? It was James Magruder asked about the late slate. Clay Thompson is one of my most rostered players there. He is going to be my choice over who was the other one? Yeah, over Jalen Williams. Clay was one of the players I got the most exposure to when I ran lineups for the late slate.
Oh, could I throw one more player in there that I like from the early games? I actually do like some James Bouknight, just not getting a ton of ownership. I have 7% there. I think that he is a fairly strong play. So one more player from Charlotte on the early slate that I would, I'm not saying that it's necessarily a big mistake to not have him in your player pool, but I do think that James Bouknight kind of interesting. I actually got to some Theo Maledon also. He's very chalky, 34% projected ownership. I think that he's a fine play at 30. I don't think he's like a huge slam dunk kind of play, but at 6,100 he's in play. We've got him projected for 33 fantasy points. Actually, now that I'm saying it, I think I actually might cut out my Theo Maledon just and save for some better value, because it scares me a little bit.
Got a question in Discord from Mincash Merchant. Kai and Richards max 1. Yeah, I don't think I have any lineups that have both of them.
I set a rule max 1 of those two.
Yeah, they're not going to share the court together. They have some negative correlation. I didn't set a rule specifically to make sure that I don't get both of them in the same lineup, but I just don't think it's going to happen for me either as I'm scrolling through. Like maybe I have one lineup with both of them in, but it's not ideal.
I saw people asking about Gorgie Jeng, and he actually looked really good in our boom bust duel. As far as leverage goes, we've got Jeng projected for under 1% ownership, 13.5% chance of booming, 6% chance of being optimal in our sims. So kind of, I think he's a fine leverage play. Obviously, I'd like him a lot more if he ends up starting, which is pretty unlikely.
It is, it's just not necessary today, right? There's going to be, I assume, a ton of players that get ruled out, and then it's just not going to be needed. But yeah, if we get into a scenario where for whatever reason everybody who's questionable ends up playing, maybe that changes. But I don't think he's really going to be needed today, because the opportunity cost of Gorgie Jeng is going to be so many other good value plays.
Yeah, and he's center only, I believe.
Yeah,
makes it tough.
He's cheap. I can't remember a time that Gorgie Jeng was expensive.
You don't remember the year that he was playing 32 minutes per game for the Timberwolves? He got up to like 7,000 at one point, I think, on FanDuel.
Yeah, so what was that, like 6 years ago though?
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah, I don't really, once again, I don't remember a time. I can't remember what happened 6 years ago. In fairness, I don't remember what I did 3 days ago either. But the situation as far as Gorgie Jeng goes, I wouldn't be playing him today. Super chat from Green Checkmark: Goodwin, Davis, and Nunn on FanDuel. Nunn pivots. I like Goodwin and Davis a lot. I'm not gonna say that Nunn is unplayable. He's just not a priority for me. Like you don't have to. And by the way, it's totally fine to have Goodwin and Davis in the same lineup in case that's something else that's on people's mind. They're both cheap enough. There's a lot of opportunity there. And even Kendrick Nunn is so cheap. It's maybe not the ideal scenario from a correlation standpoint, but if you have a lineup with Goodwin, Davis, and Nunn, I don't think it's the end of the world considering your salaries.
Frankie Lofton is saying that we missed his super. Oh, he just sent it. Okay. Top 5 owned players on DraftKings. Thanks, Greg. Good luck.
Okay, so the super chat that he left us there is a top. Is it my most rostered players or the Fields?
I think he means your most rostered players, but I don't know.
Let's see. Top 5 owned players on DK. Thanks, Greg. All right, so let's answer it both ways. I give you my most rostered players, and then we could do the Fields. So for me right now, it is Tatum, Goodwin, Murray, Saddiq Bey, and Johnny Davis. As far as the field goes, the field, and let me refresh ownership. So I'm getting the most recent run. I know that Jordan Goodwin is going to be one of them.
I have 100% Jordan Goodwin on DraftKings.
Yeah, so here are the top 5 most rostered players. By the way, another reason that I'm not super high on Kendrick Nunn, the field is playing him 49% of lineups. That is so much Kendrick Nunn. I do not want to play Kendrick Nunn when he's nearly 50% owned, right? Like, once again, there's opportunity for him there. The fact to me, though, that he's this much more popular than Johnny Davis when Johnny Davis is starting is pretty crazy to me.
I'm with you 100%. You convinced me on Johnny Davis. Now I'm getting to a good amount.
Like I'm very surprised by the ownership.
I'm going to be furious when Johnny Davis doesn't pan out, though.
Oh, you're going to be even madder when not only does he not pan out, but we also get a big game out of Kendrick Nunn off the bench. Here's what we have right now in terms of ownership projection. Kendrick Nunn is projected for 49% ownership. Johnny Davis is projected for 14%. Kind of
and Johnny Davis is starting. Yeah, I'm with you. It makes so much sense. Like it's hard to project this kind of thing, but it would make way more sense for them to play Johnny Davis more minutes. I am definitely with you on it making sense. Coaches don't always do what makes sense, so it's no guarantee, but I think it's worth taking some shots on that at lower ownership.
Yeah, which also it's just goes back, and we're about to see what the actual ownership is in a little bit as well, but then it's Kai Jones 3, Teo Maledon 4, Saddiq Bey 5. Those are the 5 most popular players for DraftKings purposes. And the slate is just locked. So we are about to see what the actual ownership is. And that is a game that locked in the first section of games. So we have 4 games that just locked. Cleveland, Orlando, Toronto, Charlotte, Milwaukee, Washington, Miami, Detroit. If Johnny Davis is now like way more popular than Kendrick Nunn, it is going to be very annoying. All right, let's see what happened. Let's go to the DraftKings lobby. We'll download the CSV and see where the ownership actually came in. The one thing I'm very confident in is that we're going to see Goodwin massively popular. I do not know what to make of the Kendrick Nunn, Johnny Davis ownership.
Over under 75% for Goodwin.
Oh, are you looking at it right now?
No, I'm asking you. I'm not looking at it yet. I'm actually setting my baseball lineups. I have to run crunches.
I am going to guess. I'm going to guess that he comes in under that mark in the 15. It's just such a high number on a 13-game slate. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so he is 68% on. Yeah, Kendrick Nunn 23%. So he did not end up being at that 50% number.
I feel happy with my over under there though. 75% came in at 68.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 23% Kendrick Nunn. That's much more reasonable than nearly 50%. I wish he was 50%.
Yeah. Where did Johnny Davis come in?
All right, let's see. Johnny Davis. Yeah, Johnny Davis came at 19%. So he's still lower owned than Kendrick Nunn, but it was pretty similar. They had almost the same ownership projection. But like Karl Anthony Towns will start. Starting lineup for the Timberwolves: Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, Towns, Gobert. So nothing really changes there in terms of Cat. He's been, this to me was kind of the same scenario that we saw with the Gobert ankle thing. You know, how many games in a row has Cat been questionable with that calf injury now?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because he actually just came back from a long absence, but
Yeah. So,
Maybe not
all
the
right, he's
exact
in,
same.
and Dylan Brooks officially ruled out.
I already thought he was ruled out. How are Eric's tiers tasting?
Pretty good. Pretty good. And I am parched. It's really nice out today. I spent a bunch of time outside. I know we joke that we never go outside as DFS players, but when I get to go eat my lunch and I get to walk into town, and there's a bunch of good restaurants in my town, there's a lot of places to eat. I can just walk. It's like 3 blocks, and I can eat whatever I want, and then I walk back. It's really nice. It was almost 80 degrees out here today.
Wow.
It was very nice. Wait, Kevin Knox is available to play now? Wasn't he downgraded to doubtful before?
Yeah, I thought Kevin Knox was out.
All right, so Kevin Knox is now available to play.
No, we had him in.
Okay,
yeah, at least we did not remove him from projections, so we're just misremembering.
Okay. Yeah, there was a lot of players from Portland that got added to the injury report before. But yeah, so Kevin Knox is in. So we don't have to change anything for that. Yeah, let me just double check what I have for Portland. Okay, yeah. I still had Knox in. John Butler was questionable. He is in. Are you still getting to a lot of Jonathan Williams? Because I am not.
I am still at 53%. Now, I've done absolutely nothing to anybody's projections, I don't think. So this is a completely just like based on the projections we have, I'm getting to a lot of, which I don't love it. I actually will probably, I'm guessing that will change over time. We've only got him in for like, I think 22 fantasy points or so. Let me see. Like he doesn't project extremely well for us. It's just he's min price.
We got a super chat from Os Astic. Os Astic says Kispert 8.2%, good or bad?
It's reasonable,
context?
I'd say.
Like in what context?
I think he's saying that he came in at 8.2%. Would you want to have more than the field of that? I would say maybe. I think it's a reasonable number for Kispert, to be honest. I don't feel strongly one way or the other on Kispert at 8%.
Yeah, I'm not. If you had a lineup or two with him, not the end of the world, but was not a priority by any means. I do think there could potentially be some better players that open up later. So if it was my choice to be over, I am underweight to the field on him on Kispert. So I'll say underweight. But yeah, if you had a lineup, it's not the end of the world. Starting lineup for the Bucks: Holiday, Connaughton, Crowder, Giannis, and Brooke Lopez today. So that's interesting. Jay Crowder starting. Let me see this. Crowder starting. So we got Jay Crowder starting in place of Chris Middleton. And by the way, we never got this lineup before lock, though.
Yeah, I was just wondering. Yeah, that game already locked. Great. Well,
somebody messaged in chat and said, "Do we ever get the Bucks starting lineup?" And I was looking all over, and the answer was just no. We didn't get the Bucks start. This is absolute end of NBA season nonsense. Also, where it's like, hey, when does the starting lineup come? When the game starts, you'll see who's on the court.
Yep.
Blazers active play. Blazers active play. Yeah, I probably would have played Jay Crowder if we knew that news.
I would have too,
but we didn't. Blazers available players. They have Skylar Mays, Shaden Sharp, Kevin Knox, Jabari Walker, Drew Eubanks, Shaq Harrison, Jonathan Williams, Justin Maya, John Butler. So 9 active players for the Portland Trail Blazers today. It's so hard to know what to expect from any of those bench guys, though. Like I played John Butler the last time they were really shorthanded. I think he scored like 14 fantasy points or something like that, which is like acceptable, but I don't know that I really want to go chasing like a ton of Jonathan Williams. Okay, well, what is the okay? So Kevin Knox, I just want to look it up. Yeah, so Knox was all right. So Knox was questioned before he was upgraded in. That was the scenario.
You see Olrat's super chat?
We just got one here. Yeah, from Olrat 14. How much JT Thor do you have? Actual percentage on Zeke. I did not play JT Thor. Thor is just absolute garbage as a fantasy producer this year.
Somebody just said that they accidentally got to 100. They missed lock, have 100% Kai Jones. Honestly, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Like, if you're going to have somebody accidentally locked in, Kai Jones is not the worst player for it to be.
By the way, JT Thor has made 5 starts this year. How many fantasy points did you guess he's averaging in those starts?
In 5 starts? 13.
Lower.
10.
10.3. So we've seen him in this role. He's such a poor fantasy producer. And it's not even that surprising. If you look at his numbers overall for the season, we expanded out. We look at a larger sample size. 66 games played by JT Thor this year, 13.5 minutes per game, 8 fantasy points. he's just not a good fantasy producer. So yeah,
no
interest in JT Thor. I know the game is already locked. What was his actual ownership? JT Thor is 2.5% owned. I would argue that's too high. All right. I'd say 2.5. The field has gone crazy playing 2.5% JT Thor.
2.5. That's way too much JT Thor.
Yeah. I'm just going to take a stance on something really stupid that I could only backfire. There's no upside in me making that statement, Neil. This could only go poorly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If he does poorly, it's like, yeah, he's whatever. What the fuck is JT Thor? If he goes off tonight, like people are going to be roasting. Let's just put it on Greg. I didn't say anything. Greg is the one who said it.
So the other thing too about the JT Thor ownership though is, so even if he goes out and scores 25 fantasy points, I think that's fairly irrelevant on this slate.
Yeah, that's also true.
JT Thor is power forward eligible, only $4,600 on DraftKings. On like the other thing too, he's $4,800 on FanDuel. He's $4,600 on DraftKings. That's a really high price point for a guy who averages 10 fantasy points as a starter.
Right.
You know what they need to do to make JT Thor viable? They need to lower the min price.
Why are people block? I don't know who just timed out YouTube hip. I don't think he said anything negative. He was just
stream elements. Yeah, what is this?
I don't know. It seemed like he was just a innocent conversation.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything.
Well, sorry about that. We didn't try it. Oh, it's only for 120 seconds, so no idea who did it, but not us doing that.
Yeah, who's stream elements?
I don't know.
It's not Jordan got bored of the show and left. He's somewhere else now.
Yeah. As Mike says, stream elements has become sentient. Yeah, it seems that way.
I'm really confused by this now.
I've never seen it before.
So my understanding of stream elements is that stream elements is just,
we have like a Twitch stream.
It's people say something in our Twitch chat and it just shows up in YouTube, since we have a lot more people in YouTube.
Yeah.
Listen to this. Listen to what happened while you were taking a shit, Jordan. Stream elements is banning people in YouTube chat. How is that possible? But it was something. It wasn't anything like nothing. This guy who got banned just got timed out, but he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything wrong.
And he also only got timed out for 2 minutes, which you can't even do on YouTube, as far as I know. Very strange.
Oh my God. How could we ban stream elements? I don't want this. Bring him back. I want my friend back. We need all the viewers we could get. All right. Well, anyway, we have reached lock. We are past lock. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and Neil and I are going to look for some bets that we like right now in Bet Pro. And if you guys haven't checked out Bet Pro yet, you get a 7-day free trial. Not only does it include NBA now, it also includes baseball, and they're included in the same package. So if you guys want baseball bets, if you want basketball bets, we got them all included in Bet Pro. This is our projections, but for a betting purpose, we're comparing them to all the different betting lines available over at various sports books and finding the best one available. So I am going to pull up our basketball projections and see what looks good right now. Loading on the screen. All right. Still loading. Do you want to look at baseball bets too, Neil, or should we just look at the NBA ones?
Yeah, we could do, but I'm sure there are people here who would be interested in both. So yeah, now that we've got MLB Bet Pro, might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure how generous you were feeling today.
I'm feeling generous, Greg. I had a lot of people show up for my MLB stream this morning, which I really appreciated. After got mixed reviews on Saturday, we had a lot of people came back.
Yeah, did it better today?
I thought it went better. I thought the format today went better. Tomorrow, though, it's again back to live before lock. As far as I can tell, we must have an afternoon lock, which I think that's when people are going to get pissed off because they want the classic live before lock, and they're like, "What's with this nerd looking at his spreadsheets?"
Well, I hate to break it to anybody who says that. That is what you're going to get on any show on this channel.
That is also true.
It's not something that changes at any point. No matter what time you look at it, you are going to get a nerd who is looking at spreadsheets. I cannot get anything to load on my computer right now. Do you have it open for yourself?
I have NBA Bet Pro loading. Any second now, it's going to be open. I think it looks like it's almost ready to open.
Mm-mm. Can you get it to open, Jordan?
Oh, I've got it. I've got Bet Pro open.
I don't know why my computer just won't load anything right now. So here's what I think we should do here, Neil. Tell me some of the top projected bets that stand out to you, and then I'll say how I feel about those bets since nothing will load on my computer at the moment.
Sorry, say that again.
Tell me some of the top bets that stand out to you.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. And it just loaded for me. Now I have it in front of me. There we go. So,
I mean, this Aaron Gordon 88.88% EV bet on Aaron Gordon. PRA looks pretty damn good to me. The top one there.
Yeah. So we've got over under 23.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. He is projected for 25.1. I actually have Gordon even a little bit higher than that. And the other thing to add to this as well is there is a possibility that Jokic does not play his full allotment of minutes, right? If that happens, Aaron Gordon would only look better. So I think we should be on Aaron Gordon here. I'm going to agree with our projections. I like Aaron Gordon over 23.5 PRA. I think that is a bet to place some money on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a no-brainer bet to place money on.
Not quite the same no-brainer that the Bet365 offer is. Don't forget, you sign up using the link, you place a $1 bet, $200 in bonus bets. But either way, it is still one that looks pretty good. Let's see what else. But it's not the only one. We've also got Aaron Gordon over under 0.5 threes. We've got the over projected pretty well on that. So that is something I think worth looking at. Yeah, pretty much. It looks like a lot of these Aaron Gordon numbers just didn't really change from the updated status of Nikola Jokic. I'm going to place these bets right now, actually, as we're talking through it.
Wait, but we have Jokic in now.
Yep. No, but I'm saying the sports books didn't change them.
Oh, I see.
Because I think this is what Aaron Gordon's number was when Jokic was still questionable.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Bet placed. Over 23.5 PRA for Aaron Gordon. Also, I'm going to be betting Aaron Gordon over 0.5 threes because that's a really low number.
I guess I'm confused. Why wouldn't you like unders better with Jokic in, or why do you like these overs better with Jokic?
So I think, So I should reiterate. I think that they priced Aaron Gordon to have Jokic out, and then I think that when Jokic was ruled in, they took the lines down and reposted and made it too low.
I see.
That was what I meant. I did not explain that properly at all.
Yeah, I follow now.
Yeah, did not explain that properly at all. Let's see what else.
I'm hearing Johnny Davis is crushing. By the way,
is he really?
That's what people are saying.
Oh my God, would that make me happy? I mean, we are like 5 minutes into the slate, so we should know who's won by now.
He's got 7 fantasy points in 3 minutes. That is very strong. He's not a great fantasy producer. So 7 fantasy points in 3 minutes is actually very good.
3 points, an assist, and a steal, and the 3 points came via 3. Yeah, good start for him. Absolutely. I'm very happy about that. I'm still confused how Kendrick. I know that it didn't end up being quite the big split, but Kendrick Nunn being that much. Being more popular than Johnny Davis as a starter. I'm telling you, Johnny Davis, he's going to crush today. We're going to get the Johnny Davis game.
Looking like it. I mean, if he can keep up this fantasy point per minute production here, over 2 fantasy points per minute, if he can do that for 38 minutes as you projected, going to smash the slate.
And let's see who else is doing stuff in that game right now. I'll tell you who's not. Jordan Goodwin. Not too concerned though. Goodwin's played 3 minutes. He has only a rebound. Oh, he blocked a shot, actually. There we go. So Goodwin has a rebound and a block. That's not bad. 3.25 fantasy points for him in 3 minutes. On the Bucks side of the game, Giannis is yet to score. I mean, how could he? He's going up against Johnny Davis defense.
Yeah, you can't take that heat from Johnny Davis. Yeah, Torkelson Snorkels says he won't. Sorry, I disagree. I would make a bet that Johnny Davis puts up 80 fantasy points tonight.
Really? I'm going higher than that. There's only been how many? I know James Harden has 200 fantasy point games. I think Westbrook has one. I think Anthony Davis might have one. Donovan Mitchell had one earlier in the season, I believe. Johnny Davis, add him to that list today.
Add him to the list.
Let me look this up. 100 fantasy point games. 100 DK fantasy point games. Look at StatMuse. Let's see. Who is Johnny Davis rivaling with here? Most DK fantasy points in any single game. We're looking this up on StatMuse because I'm sure that Johnny Davis is a better player than anybody who's on this list.
Clearly, I mean, he was a first round draft pick.
Yeah, exactly. Like, who are these? Luka. Oh, Luka had that massive game earlier in the year. So Luka has the most DK points ever. I forgot. He had that game against the Knicks. Luka's stat line, he had 60 points, 21 rebounds, and 10 assists against the Knicks and put up 110.75 DraftKings points. All right, I'll be honest. I have my concerns that Johnny Davis is going to reach that today.
You think that he cannot reach that today?
No, I'm not saying he can. I just have doubts that he will.
He might not. Yeah, he might not be the highest fantasy scorer.
So Luka had 100.75. Harden has 2 games with 103.5. Donovan Mitchell had the game earlier with 102.5. DeMarcus Cousins had a game with 102.25. We had a Kevin Durant game with 100.25. I think that was a playoff game actually against the Bucks. And then Joel Embiid had a game in November where he scored 100.25. So those are the kind of names that Johnny Davis is going to be with at the end of the night.
Yeah, I think that's where he belongs.
Let's see if he scored any more fantasy points since we last talked. Unfortunately, he's gone a minute without scoring. So he's officially a bust now.
Yeah, he's a bust. Ken Roddy says Wilt Chamberlain owns highest score. I would be really curious to see the fantasy scores from like old time. Like I'm sure that's true. Maybe actually like DraftKings or somebody posted that at one point. But yeah, that would be just like absolutely break the entire slate kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way to know, right? Because only of the people here, only EMAC watched the 100-point Wilt Chamberlain game. But
that's true.
Wilt Chamberlain had a game with 100 real life points. I'm sure he scored many DraftKings points in that
right.
game.
He probably had 40 rebounds in that game.
Here's part of the issue with that, though. I'm 99.9% sure the answer is actually Wilt. But the reason I didn't include him there is because there was no DraftKings. There was no internet then. There was no cell phones. So he doesn't really count. The other thing, too, though, is there was no block shots then.
Right. There were no block. We didn't track them.
Yeah. What year did blocked shots get counted in the NBA?
Ken Roddy says it was like 185. Adam calculated, and that's without block shots, if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, block shots were officially recorded in 1973, 1974.
Oh yeah, EMAC remembers they didn't start counting block shots until 1974. I say that and then I realize it's not actually a joke because EMAC was alive in 1974.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
EMAC was, so there's all that controversy because there are people who doubt whether Wilt Chamberlain actually ever scored 100 points in a game. There's questions. I didn't know that. Yeah. It's because there's no video of it. It's just like eyewitness reports and then a news story. And then Wilt Chamberlain holding up the sign that says 100. I think EMAC was the stat keeper of that game. And I think he messed up all of the stats. And Wilt Chamberlain actually scored 10 points that game. EMAC accidentally added another 0. And we just rolled with it for all these years.
I'm glad to hear YouTube Hip says EMAC low-key looks younger than his age because people get me and EMAC mixed up all the time. And EMAC is a full 11 years older than me. Yeah, somebody was shouting me out for my baseball calls the other day. And I was like, oh, I wasn't even on a show last night. And then it was like, oh yeah, it was EMAC. Sorry. It's happened a couple times.
So I've brought this up before because you put out free content on the internet. It's consumable for anybody. And you get some weird stuff sometimes. My all-time favorite one was a guy who got really upset at me about a baseball slate. I used to do a solo podcast when I did content. I used to sit in my parents' basement with just a microphone, my computer. I talked into all by myself. I would just talk about baseball slates for 15, 20 minutes every morning. And somebody got mad at me because he used I'm trying to remember which way this went. I think he used a football podcast that I'd recorded 6 months prior and used that to build baseball lineups. And he was like, none of this information is good. And I was thinking, man, I was trying to get, so it was one way or the other. He either used an old football podcast to build baseball lineups or used an old baseball podcast to build football lineups. I can't remember exactly which way it went. I'm pretty sure he used a football podcast to make baseball lineups.
I can't even think of like how that's possible.
Yeah, same. Multiple reasons too. Because I didn't get not that many people listened to my podcast at the time. Like a big episode for me was like, oh, cool, 200 people listened. Like that would be massive for me back in the day.
Yeah.
So it's not only that he had found the podcast, he listened to it, he took the time to respond, but that he found one from 6 months ago. Like I didn't even have the recordings from 6 months ago anymore.
That's a good story. Ooh, new super chat from Olrat. Ooh, JT Thor breaking the slate.
Is he now?
Let's up to 3.25.
JT Thor. Oh yeah, watch out, JT Thor 3-0. So I didn't realize that Olrat had played JT Thor, and that's why he was asking questions. JT Thor.
Olrat gonna win everything tonight.
Yeah, so JT Thor. If you have to pull a positive away from JT Thor, he isn't in foul trouble yet.
That is true. Yeah, so we have not gotten a single fantasy point from Johnny Davis since we started talking about him. Three more game minutes, 0 fantasy points, which honestly, he's still over a fantasy point per minute, which is still better than you can usually expect from Johnny Davis.
And by the way, Kendrick Nunn did check in, but for Corey Kispert.
Interesting.
So I still might get all these minutes that I thought we were going to get out of Johnny Davis, but it looks like Corey Kispert could end up playing less minutes. Also, something kind of weird about this game, the foul situation. So we are less than 6 minutes into the game. Kispert has a personal foul. Gafford already has 2. Goodwin has 1, and Johnny Davis has 1. Fouls are an issue for the Wizards right now. Boy, if Johnny Davis doesn't score at least... So, all right, maybe 100 fantasy points was a high line.
I'm being blamed in chat. Why am I being blamed for this Johnny Davis failure now? People are saying I jinxed him. What did I say?
Yeah, I would blame you as well. But if he
doesn't, I thought it was reasonable to predict 100 fantasy points for him.
I'll lower it to 90. If he puts up 90, I won't say I'll be disappointed, but I won't sleep well tonight.
Yeah, no, 90. That's not going to be.
Udoka
if I win the money, I think
Udoka Azubuike starting at center for the Jazz. Let's see. What do I have for Udoka Azubuike?
Yeah, Rick Jones. This is the stout that I meant to be drinking last night.
Yeah, so I already had. This isn't going to change anything for me. I was already giving him starters minutes. And did I have exposure to Azubuike? I don't think it was significant. He might have been in my player pool, though.
I do not have any exposure. Yeah, he's 3,900.
I have 10% exposure to Udoka Azubuike.
So we only have him in for 21 minutes. I assume it's going to go up with him, the news that he's starting here.
Yeah.
He's actually nearly a fantasy point per minute guy.
Yeah, I have him for 28.
That's interesting.
There's so many good center options that it's hard to just play a ton of him.
Yeah.
But I think he's very viable. So are you going to be getting to him, do you believe now?
So I just put him in for 28 minutes to see what would happen. Ran a new crunch and got to 43% Azubuike.
Yeah. I don't mind.
I'm going to project him slightly worse because I don't think I want that much, but I'm definitely going to be getting to some.
Yeah, I'll give him a little boost. I actually would like more of him than what I have right now. So let me update that. Like I said, I had 10%. If I could get up to like 20% Azubuike, I'd feel pretty decent about that. Also, I mean, if there's any point in time for the Jazz to give him run just to see what they have, like when else are you going to do it? Because he's never going to really be able to get playing time from Walker Kessler. You might as well play him now and see like, all right, is this guy an actual rotation piece that we could build around? It's a tough matchup for him. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets into foul trouble guarding LeBron, guarding Anthony Davis. But I think they're going to give him all the opportunities that he possibly could get. So I like getting to Azubuike.
Yeah, the Maharishi, maybe that is a good point. I said I would not play Richards and Kai Jones together, and they have been playing on the floor together. So there's an argument to be made that you could play them together. I'm okay with not having them. Yeah, that is also true. I just realized that. So Matt Butler had messaged us on Twitter saying that they play together. I didn't realize why he was messaging us about that because we're projecting them to play some minutes together. We have them both projected like 28, 29 minutes. But I guess that makes sense as far as maybe you could make an argument that they're fine to play together, but I think I'm okay with not doing it too.
All right, updating my lineups. Let's see. Did I get to more Azubuike? Yes, I did get to more Azubuike now. Export, upload them. Cool. I'm good with this. Just a few minutes to go until the next game locks. I want to open up Discord to make sure we didn't miss anybody's questions. I'm going to scroll the YouTube chat to make sure there's no more super chats. What do we have here in the old Discord? If it's nothing, that is also okay. By the way, I am about to lose my voice hard. I can feel it.
Yeah, you should see me on these baseball solo streams. By the end of it, I'm hoarse. I'm like trying to speak, and it's got a frog in my throat. It's rough.
Miami High Life. How many players does Portland have going tonight? Any DK GPP locks? 9 active players for Portland. I would not lock anybody from their team.
Yeah.
Not
I do have at this point. I have 53% Shaquille Harris, 53% Jabari Walker, 27% Kevin Knox.
Yeah, I wouldn't lock any of them though.
I'm down to 23% Jonathan Williams. I think I went in and lowered his projection, so I'm at 23% Jonathan Williams. But yeah, none of them are locks. I agree.
Johnny Davis is back, stealing a bucket, 5 points and assists.
Love to see it.
Steals. But this is all jokes about Johnny Davis aside. He is now over 10 fantasy points in 7.5 minutes. So I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
And people are panicking about Giannis. So Giannis checked out fairly early, but I mean, he's at 6 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist in his first rotation. He's probably going to be fine. Wouldn't really be panicking about it. Oh, and then Kevin Cloonan saying that he actually stole the ball from Giannis and then dunked on the other end of the court.
Ooh.
Things we love to see. Who's better? If you had to build a team next, I'm not going to say 10 years because then the answer would be obviously Johnny Davis.
Yeah.
5 years, Johnny Davis or Giannis. Who you pick?
I mean, have we ever seen Giannis steal the ball from Johnny Davis and get a dunk on the other side?
No, I mean, to be fairness, though, I've never really watched too much of Johnny Davis play.
I think you got to go Johnny Davis, first round pick.
So I'm fairly sure I remember watching him in the NCAA tournament last year. I've seen him get some garbage time run for the Wizards. I do believe he's terrible. I do not think he's a good player at all. I don't think he's a good fantasy producer. But this particular situation with everybody out for the Wizards led to him ending up in all my lineups. So we're rooting hard. At least I'm rooting hard for Johnny Davis. Not exactly sure where chat's rooting interest is for today. But we're heading into lock here, Neil. Is there anything we didn't talk about or anything you want to give to the people before we head out? It's okay if you have nothing else.
I just want to point out that I think Johnny Davis may have actually been a higher draft pick than Giannis. I don't actually know where he was drafted, but I know Giannis was a relatively late draft pick, which is kind of funny to think about. Johnny Davis being drafted earlier in his draft than Giannis. But no, I don't have anything else. We just got
Yeah, Jokic is
in
officially.
Jamal Murray. Okay.
Jamal Murray is in. Yeah, so we actually had, not only was Giannis not a super high pick in the draft, it was in a really weak draft. That was the Cody Zeller draft. That was the draft Anthony Bennett went first overall. The only reason that draft is not one of the worst ones of all time is because it had Giannis in it. Giannis went in the middle of the first round.
Yeah. Also, Gobert went 27th in that draft. Gorgie Jen went like 24th.
And all players who got drafted later than Johnny Davis, who was the 10th overall pick in the draft this year. That does it for us, guys. Let's go Johnny Davis. If you didn't do it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck, and I'll see you guys back here tomorrow.